For over 130 years, Peoria Unified has been proud to support families in the West Valley. Our schools and programs might look different than how they did then, but one thing remains constant. Peoria Unified staff are part of an extended family raising tens of thousands of young people, helping them day in and day out to grow and learn so that someday they can shape our future. In the spring of 2020, our world was turned upside down. Schools and businesses closed so that our families could find shelter from the storm. Classes were empty and offices were locked, but still, the people of Peoria Unified were there to help, to support, and to comfort. The smallest act became a symbol of community and hope. Thousands of our families were able to feed their children by picking up food at our campuses or even having it delivered by our buses. Laptops were provided so that students were able to connect with their teachers and continue to learn. Calls, emails, video chats, and even handwritten cards and letters let our children know that even if we couldn't be in the same room, we were still all in this together. Now, as we plan to reopen our campuses, our schools will look as different to us as those first Peoria campuses would to a modern student. Physical distancing, enhanced cleaning, and staff wearing masks are not the issues we expected to deal with when we started working in Peoria, and they can make you feel like nothing will ever be the same. But for our families and children that attend our schools, one thing will never change. They count on our staff to be there and have taught their children that in times of crisis, one should always look for the helpers. We might see the mask, but they see the helpers behind the mask. The driver that safely takes them to and from school. The maintenance person that keeps their classroom clean and safe. The cafeteria worker who feeds them when they are hungry. The nurse who comforts them and keeps them healthy. The office staff that answers their questions and keeps them informed. The school resource officer that protects them. The coach who helps them see the importance of teamwork. The librarian who reads them a story or gives them a book. The counselor that unlocks their future. The administrator who can handle any problem. And most of all, the teacher who dares them to dream and is there to catch them if they fall. In this time of worry and sorrow, our students, our children, need us more than ever. For over 130 years, the proud employees of Peoria Unified have stepped up to support the families of the West Valley. And for the upcoming school year, they are depending on us to be there more than they ever have before. These are our children. These are our classrooms. This is our moment. We are Peoria Unified.
I'm Jason Reynolds, and I'm the superintendent for the Peoria Unified School District. There's been a lot of talk over the last few years about school finance, and so school districts like ours have put together videos to help our communities better understand how schools are funded and where the money goes. They've used all kinds of creative approaches for these videos, and as a team, we sat down and talked about how we might be able to better capture your attention. We talked about doing animation.
Funds in the maintenance and operation bucket pay for the day-to-day operation of our schools.
But you're adults, not kids, and the video should appeal to your sensibilities. What about a musical?
5, 6, 7, 8.
But we're educators, not entertainers. So let's dispense with the entertainment and commence with your school finance education. Let's begin. Arizona schools receive their funding from local property owners, the state of Arizona, and the federal government. Local and state sources provide about 90% of the funding, and the remainder comes from the federal government. But unlike your own budget, The use of those funds is restricted by law on how the funds can be spent. Before the district can use the funding, it is split into two separate buckets. Approximately 96% of the funds from local taxpayers and the state are placed into the maintenance and operations bucket, with the remaining 4% going into the capital bucket. The 4% of the budget in the capital bucket pays for durable items that are owned or used by the school for many years, like furniture, buses, textbooks, and technology. Funds in the maintenance and operation bucket pay for the day-to-day operation of our schools, including salaries, transportation, utilities, and general supplies like paper. All districts are required to have a balanced budget and cannot spend more than is provided in the two buckets. If the money in either of the two buckets is not enough to meet the needs of our students, the district can ask the local community to pass an override or bond to increase the available funds. Overrides and bonds are different, and the funds they generate add to the different buckets. With voter approval, the Peoria Unified School District may issue bonds that are paid back over time, similar to a mortgage or a line of credit. Bond proceeds fund capital projects that have a useful life longer than 5 years, such as new school buildings or maintenance and repair of current buildings, acquiring new buses, and technology for our schools. Overrides provide additional funds for the maintenance and operations bucket, and thanks to our community, a 13% override passed in November of 2015, which allowed us to bring back free all-day kindergarten and to provide salary increases for our staff, as well as support invaluable resources such as assistant principals, nurses, arts education, reading programs, gifted education, athletics, and extracurricular activities. Overrides are approved for a 7-year term, and if not renewed by voters, the funding begins to be reduced in years 6 and 7, and by year 8, the funding is fully eliminated. Without the current override, the district's maintenance and operation budget would shrink by more than $27 million. To maintain a consistent level of funding, many districts will ask voters to renew an override in year 4 or 5 of the current term. Does school finance make more sense to you now? I hope it does. But if you have more questions about our budget, please visit our website at peoriaunified.org/bonds and overrides, or call us at 623-486-6100.
Well, hi there. My name is Christina Schwagerman, and I am the nurse over here at Zuni Hills Elementary. And as you can see, things are going to be a little bit different coming into our offices. So I just want to share with you some of the changes. So when a student comes in, we've added this little level of protection just so that they can be protected to not have everybody see who is here visiting us at the time. We have chairs out here that are going to be spaced, and so this is if a student needs to wait at all, they'll be out here until we can see them. All teachers will be calling us in advance to say that there's a student that has a need, and we will let them know to go ahead and send that student down before coming. All students who come to enter, they're going to stop right here, and they will get a temperature check before coming in. At that time, myself or my assistant will be able to meet with them and let them know where to go. So we will decide whether they need to go into our sick zone or into our well zone so that we can give them the care that they need. Then they will come this way. So for any student that comes with COVID-like symptoms, we need to make sure that we can give them the appropriate care needed. And so we have set up this sick zone that they can come in here, and we can have up to 4 students at a time. And so each bay can have it. The students will wear a mask while in here. And then of course we have the little added barriers to keep them from the other students that are in here. If somebody was really sick, we would have to take the other students out and actually open up our well zone to then be the care for our sick students. And so this is over here. And so we do have the room to expand out as needed. And so this is what we're doing here at Zuni. If you were a well student, some of the ideas of who we would be seeing would be maybe if there was an injury out on the playground, or a diabetic student, or our daily medications. Those simple injuries or chronic illnesses, those are the students that we'll be seeing in this area here. Otherwise, we do, like I said, have that sick zone where they can have more of that isolated area to care for them. Well, of course, whenever we are trying to socially distance and keep that space to keep everybody safe while caring for them, that means we don't have a lot of room for everybody to come through. So we have a plan for that. What we've done is created where doors are closed so that our staff know not to use this as a thorough way. We've also created zones, the red, yellow, and green zone, so that staff in advance know the condition of our health office, if they're able to send students freely or if they need to call in advance. If they call in advance, we will let them know, yes, send them here, or we've also opened up other areas of the school so that we can go and help take care of the student there. And we do have additional PPE throughout. We will just come on wheels to go take care of the students. We have a plan in place if we need to do medications outside of our office or any other needs that need to be met. We will make sure to be taking care of those students. One thing that we've done in preparation of that is actually a first aid kit for every single classroom and all of the staff on campus who might be going out to do lunch duties or things like that. And so these kits that we have are specifically prepared so that those little needs like paper cuts or chapped lips, things like that, we want the teachers to be empowered to be able to help care for the students' needs and not bring them in here where they might be exposed. So we're being very intentional to try to help anticipate those needs and be ready to care for them. Right. So if your student does need to go home, we would be giving you a call and we have an hour that your student would need to be picked up. We are asking this because not all schools have very much space to hold students. And of course, if they're sick, they're not comfortable and they're needing to go home for that care as well. And so again, per Maricopa County guidelines, we are asking that all parents pick up students within 1 hour. Be sure to update your contact information for any emergency contacts. That way we can get in contact with you in that event of your child being ill. Just also to know, if your student was to go home, based on Maricopa County guidelines, they could be out for up to 10 days, or it would require that negative COVID test before they return to campus. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today and to go over all the changes that we are making here in the health office so that we can keep you, your students, our staff, and our whole community safe. Safety and health is our #1 priority. Be sure if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your admin for your specific school site. We would love to get you those answers and make sure everybody is comfortable and confident before returning to school.
For over 130 years, Peoria Unified has been proud to support families in the West Valley. Our schools and programs might look different than how they did then, but one thing remains constant. Peoria Unified staff are part of an extended family raising tens of thousands of young people, helping them day in and day out to grow and learn so that someday they can shape our future. In the spring of 2020, our world was turned upside down. Schools and businesses closed so that our families could find shelter from the storm. Classes were empty and offices were locked, but still, the people of Peoria Unified were there to help, to support, and to comfort. The smallest act became a symbol of community and hope. Thousands of our families were able to feed their children by picking up food at our campuses or even having it delivered by our buses. Laptops were provided so that students were able to connect with their teachers and continue to learn. Calls, emails, video chats, and even handwritten cards and letters let our children know that even if we couldn't be in the same room, we were still all in this together. Now, as we plan to reopen our campuses, our schools will look as different to us as those first Peoria campuses would to a modern student. Physical distancing, enhanced cleaning, and staff wearing masks are not the issues we expected to deal with when we started working in Peoria, and they can make you feel like nothing will ever be the same. But for our families and children that attend our schools, one thing will never change. They count on our staff to be there and have taught their children that in times of crisis, one should always look for the helpers. We might see the mask, but they see the helpers behind the mask. The driver that safely takes them to and from school. The maintenance person that keeps their classroom clean and safe. The cafeteria worker who feeds them when they are hungry. The nurse who comforts them and keeps them healthy. The office staff that answers their questions and keeps them informed. The school resource officer that protects them. The coach who helps them see the importance of teamwork. The librarian who reads them a story or gives them a book. The counselor that unlocks their future. The administrator who can handle any problem. And most of all, the teacher who dares them to dream and is there to catch them if they fall. In this time of worry and sorrow, our students, our children, need us more than ever. For over 130 years, the proud employees of Peoria Unified have stepped up to support the families of the West Valley. And for the upcoming school year, they are depending on us to be there more than they ever have before. These are our children. These are our classrooms. This is our moment. We are Peoria Unified.
Well, hi there. My name is Christina Schwagerman, and I am the nurse over here at Zuni Hills Elementary. And as you can see, things are going to be a little bit different coming into our offices. So I just want to share with you some of the changes. So when a student comes in, we've added this little level of protection just so that they can be protected to not have everybody see who is here visiting us at the time. We have chairs out here that are going to be spaced, and so this is if a student needs to wait at all, they'll be out here until we can see them. All teachers will be calling us in advance to say that there's a student that has a need, and we will let them know to go ahead and send that student down before coming. All students who come to enter, they're going to stop right here, and they will get a temperature check before coming in. At that time, myself or my assistant will be able to meet with them and let them know where to go. So we will decide whether they need to go into our sick zone or into our well zone so that we can give them the care that they need. Then they will come this way. So for any student that comes with COVID-like symptoms, we need to make sure that we can give them the appropriate care needed. And so we have set up this sick zone that they can come in here and we can have up to 4 students at a time. And so each bay can have it. The students will wear a mask while in here. And then of course we have the little added barriers to keep them from the other students that are in here. If somebody was really sick, we would have to take the other students out and actually open up our well zone to then be the care for our sick students. And so this is over here. And so we do have the room to expand out as needed. And so this is what we're doing here at Zuni. If you were a well student, some of the ideas of who we would be seeing would be maybe if there was an injury out on the playground, or a diabetic student, or our daily medications. Those simple injuries or chronic illnesses, those are the students that we'll be seeing in this area here. Otherwise, we do, like I said, have that sick zone where they can have more of that isolated area to care for them. Well, of course, whenever we are trying to socially distance and keep that space to keep everybody safe while caring for them, that means we don't have a lot of room for everybody to come through. So we have a plan for that. What we've done is created where doors are closed so that our staff know not to use this as a throwaway. We've also created zones, the red, yellow, and green zone, so that staff in advance know the condition of our health office, if they're able to send students freely or if they need to call in advance. If they call in advance, we will let them know, yes, send them here, or we've also opened up other areas of the school so that we can go and help take care of the student there. And we do have additional PPE throughout. We will just come on wheels to go take care of the students. We have a plan in place if we need to do medications outside of our office or any other needs that need to be met. We will make sure to be taking care of those students. One thing that we've done in preparation of that is actually a first aid kit for every single classroom and all of the staff on campus who might be going out to do lunch duties or things like that. And so these kits that we have are specifically prepared so that those little needs like paper cuts or chapped lips, things like that, we want the teachers to be empowered to be able to help care for the students' needs and not bring them in here where they might be exposed. So we're being very intentional to try to help anticipate those needs and be ready to care for them. Right. So if your student does need to go home, we would be giving you a call, and we have an hour that your student would need to be picked up. We are asking this because not all schools have very much space to hold students. And of course, if they're sick, they're not comfortable and they're needing to go home for that care as well. And so again, per Maricopa County guidelines, we are asking that all parents pick up students within 1 hour. Be sure to update your contact information for any emergency contacts. That way we can get in contact with you in that event of your child being ill. Just also to know, if your student was to go home, based on Maricopa County guidelines, they could be out for up to 10 days, or it would require that negative COVID test before they return to campus. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today and to go over all the changes that we are making here in the health office so that we can keep you, your students, our staff, and our whole community safe. Safety and health is our #1 priority. Be sure if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your admin for your specific school site. We would love to get you those answers and make sure everybody is comfortable and confident before returning to school.
For over 130 years, Peoria Unified has been proud to support families in the West Valley. Our schools and programs might look different than how they did then, but one thing remains constant. Peoria Unified staff are part of an extended family raising tens of thousands of young people, helping them day in and day out to grow and learn so that someday they can shape our future. In the spring of 2020, our world was turned upside down. Schools and businesses closed so that our families could find shelter from the storm. Classes were empty and offices were locked, but still, the people of Peoria Unified were there to help, to support, and to comfort. The smallest act became a symbol of community and hope. Thousands of our families were able to feed their children by picking up food at our campuses or even having it delivered by our buses. Laptops were provided so that students were able to connect with their teachers and continue to learn. Calls, emails, video chats, and even handwritten cards and letters let our children know that even if we couldn't be in the same room, we were still all in this together. Now, as we plan to reopen our campuses, our schools will look as different to us as those first Peoria campuses would to a modern student. Physical distancing, enhanced cleaning, and staff wearing masks are not the issues we expected to deal with when we started working in Peoria, and they can make you feel like nothing will ever be the same. But for our families and children that attend our schools, one thing will never change. They count on our staff to be there and have taught their children that in times of crisis, one should always look for the helpers. We might see the mask, but they see the helpers behind the mask. The driver that safely takes them to and from school. The maintenance person that keeps their classroom clean and safe. The cafeteria worker who feeds them when they are hungry. The nurse who comforts them and keeps them healthy. The office staff that answers their questions and keeps them informed. The school resource officer that protects them. The coach who helps them see the importance of teamwork. The librarian who reads them a story or gives them a book. The counselor that unlocks their future. The administrator who can handle any problem. And most of all, the teacher who dares them to dream and is there to catch them if they fall. In this time of worry and sorrow, our students, our children, need us more than ever. For over 130 years, the proud employees of Peoria Unified have stepped up to support the families of the West Valley. And for the upcoming school year, they are depending on us to be there more than they ever have before. These are our children. These are our classrooms. This is our moment. We are Peoria Unified.
President Sandoval, do we all want to try our mics just quickly to make sure?
That'd be a good idea. A little test. Oh, there you go. Yep. Corey, your mic good?
Test. Yep, good.
Perfect, thank you. All right. Again, we are now returning to our public session at 6:25. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, I do want to say I wish Dr. Reynolds a happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, moving along to opening exercises, moment of silence. Ms. Stone, would you mind leading us through the pledge? When we get to that point, please. And in our moment of silence, if we can continue to keep our families, our students, and all those in our thoughts, sending them positive thoughts as we go through these trying times. So we'll go ahead and exercise a moment of silence, and then Ms. Stone will lead us in the pledge.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Okay, moving on to section 5. 5.1, address agenda and consider adoption or recommend changes. Ms. Stone?
Fine.
You're good. Ms. Underhill?
I'm fine.
Ms. San Martinez?
I am good, thank you.
I'm good as well. And I do want to just make sure that everybody knows that Ms. Pingarelli will not be present with us this evening. So, moving on to recognition, 6.1, recognitions. Ms. Stone? Ms. Harry? Sorry, that's right. Ms. Harry.
President Sandoval, members of the board, the only recognition this evening is on behalf of our whole leadership team. We just want to say we're so glad to see Dr. Reynolds up at the dais this evening, his first board meeting up at the dais.
Yeah, thank you for that. Agreed. Okay. 6.2, board comments. Ms. Stone.
I do have a couple. I would like to say that I'm very happy my granddaughter is now in preschool, in person. She is having a blast. And just kudos to the teachers and things. And to inform everyone who is screaming at me online about why I'm not wearing a mask. I've been having some health issues. It is harder for me to breathe, and I have been tested 4 times, and I'm clean of COVID, so nobody is in danger from me. Thank you. I hope that soon we can be Peoria unified again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a word of encouragement and thanks to all of our teachers and our students and our staff as we're starting to come back. Being back myself with kids in the classroom, I know that it's taken a little level of additional patience and on the part of the kids as well as everybody else, and just want to really encourage the kids to keep building your endurance. I know you've been out for a while, but and teachers, just thanks for all you're doing, and parents, just as we kind of make another transition. So just hang in there. We're going to get there, and it'll be positive. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. San Martinez?
Yes, thank you very much, President Sandoval. So I took the opportunity to visit Coyote Hills with Ms. Abbott, MPTS, Mr. Setka at Sunrise Mountain High School, and the raving energy, excitement at those school sites. I visited them last Friday, and first, those site principals have a pulse on their community. They know, and they were able to share. When I asked, what are the top concerns of your community? They were engaged in one with their staff and making visits to all the classroom. When pulsing the community, they referenced class size, social distancing, and training in regards to mental health and well-being as a point of conversation. So I appreciate those visits. In addition, a special recognition for Miss Mia Delgado. She is a parent at Katina Elementary School who co-hosted last night a roundtable, a very concerned and respectful, honest parents with President Sandoval, Miss Airy, Miss Myers was there, and Dr. Reynolds. Last night was tough to hear in person because we recognize that these concerns that we're facing are going to continue, and I'm grateful that they let me in on a glimpse of their life. So thank you. And I hope to come up with a summary as I have my notes and bring them up tonight as we talk to a COVID update. And thank you. So that's it.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah, like Ms. A. Martinez, I certainly had the privilege of visiting some of our sites over the last couple of weeks. They're at Lake Pleasant, Frontier, and I'll tell you, agreed. The energy, the positivity that all of our teachers certainly are exuding is just inspiring. But it's not. I guess for me, it's not surprising. Again, I've always said it. All of our teachers are special individuals, and I can't think of a better group of people. Across our district, our teachers, our staff, and certainly our site leadership and our district leadership to lead, our students and our families, through these trying times. And I also want to give a shout out to our students, and our families, as they have had to adapt to this new way of learning, and I think. Their ability to do so and be very courageous and brave. Just thank you, to all of you, our parents, our students, for being courageous during these times and collaborative. And I want to use that collaborative word to segue, into the session that Ms. A. Martinez was talking about that we had last night. It was an honor to sit, with all the parents that attended and have, conversations that were, at times courageous. And, it was just, for me, an honor to be invited for one. So thank you, Monica, for setting it up and Mia, but also to be able to just to listen to understand, some of the heartburn that's going on out there, and to also realize that what we've implemented, as a district to overcome, some of the challenges that our families are realizing, is certainly just a symptom of our leadership, as an organization. So there are some opportunities without question. But the candor and the courageous conversations were invaluable to help us move forward in a relevant way. So thank you to those individuals who attended last night. So with that said, Superintendent comments.
Well, thank you, President Sandoval, governing board, and the team and guests out in our community tuning in this evening. I know this is going to sound strange, but when I walked in this evening, it occurred to me that I would be sitting in this chair up here in a partnership with this governing board, and it was a bit overwhelming. Even though I've been on the job now going on 3 months, it's just one of those moments that you have, and I just want to again thank the community and I know Mrs. Pallas-Thompson is watching this evening. But to just let her know and all the superintendents who have been in this chair for Peoria that I want to make them proud. I want to make the community proud. I want to make this team proud And I want to make the students of our district proud in the work that this team does and the partnership that I have with the board. So with that, this week, we welcome back our kindergarten through second graders. We are so excited to see our students begin returning to their classrooms with all of our added safety precautions. It was a joy to go into K1 and 2 classrooms this week and just see the amazing work that our teachers and our staff are doing, and to see the smiling faces of our students was just an absolute joy. And just as I don't think I need to remind anyone, but this Monday, third graders through 12th graders are going to be joining us as well. And we really look forward to getting out there and seeing our students return. And as well as always understanding that we have students and families who have chosen to remain virtual, and how important it is that we continue to find ways to unite and unify our district, and remember that we now have students in a variety of learning places. So it's exciting news. This is also a very good news update to share. Peoria Unified was recently awarded the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. The Certificate of Excellence recognizes that the district met the program's high standards for financial reporting and transparency for our comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year 2019. This represents a significant accomplishment by our district and our management team, and highlights the efforts put forth by our staff to be transparent and accurate with our financial reporting. A tremendous thank you to the one and only our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Michelle Myers, and her team for their hard work in making sure that we are good stewards of our resources. So thank you, Ms. Myers. Previously, we mentioned to you that Sunrise Mountain High School's media production students, under the direction of Amy Nygaard, were finalists in the 2020 National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Student Production Awards for the Rocky Mountain Division. This past weekend's winners were announced at the awards ceremony, and we are thrilled to share that Sunrise Mountain took the win. Congratulations to Amy and her talented students for their outstanding achievement in video production. Congratulations. Also, congratulations to Sunset Heights 8th grader Brandon Leave for earning a patent for an invention he developed. He created a heated skewer and barbecue system called the Skew-bacue. That's awesome. I am told this talented young man has future plans to go to medical school and become a radiologist. So we wish him all the best of luck. He's already well on his way to paving a path of success. Liberty High School's PSBN students have gotten creative this year. They've teamed up with their culinary department to produce cooking demonstrations for the culinary students while they are doing virtual learning. It is just amazing to hear how students are using their creativity and innovations to make things special during this pandemic. And maybe that will go viral, and we'll get some additional viewers. And last but not least, a congratulation is in order for Coyote Hills 6th grader student, Sadie Martin. Her artwork was chosen to represent the city of Peoria's new library card. She will be recognized in an upcoming city council meeting and her award-winning design. Look forward to seeing that. And with that, President Sandoval, back to you.
All right.
President Sandoval?
Yes, ma'am.
I do have one question for Dr. Reynolds. Do we know the Finance Excellence Award? I know we've received it a couple of times during my term. Do we know or where those awards are placed, or how often, or any data?
Let me guess. I'm just willing to bet that Ms. Myers knows exactly how many awards we've won and how frequently.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Each year, when the district publishes our comprehensive annual financial report, which is in essence our audited financial statements, it is eligible for a Certificate of Excellence Award from two governing agencies, ASBO International, Association of School Business Officials International, and GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. So if you visit our website, you'll see in our CAFR We do publish the award certificate each year for the prior year. So, for instance, in our fiscal year 2020 CAFR, you will see the ASBO International Certificate, and we're anxiously waiting to hear the status of our GFOA certificate for this year. And we have received the award for over, I believe, 20 years. So it's something we're very proud to receive, and it is an award that we have received over the years. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Sam Martinez. We should have a trophy wall, maybe, in the foyer.
And to fully answer the question, we also get a plaque from both organizations, and if you visit our Business Services Department, you will see that we have a number of the awards on the general wall, and we do periodically update that award wall. So thank you.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you for that. All right, moving along to public comment. I do not have any green slips. Ms. Ari, Ms. Contra, any green slips in your possession? Nope. Okay, consent agenda. Do have any board members who would like to pull any items from the consent agenda? Ms. Dunn?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Underhill?
No, thank you.
Ms. Sarah Martinez?
I do.
Okay.
President Sandoval, may I please pull 8.3, the HR report, 8.4, the donation report, 8.24, new coursework, and 10.1, oh, I know, that was in the COVID conversation, so just 3.
All right. I will second those. So I do need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 8.3, 8.4, and 8.24. And Ms. Contra, if you need a sec to kind of reorganize that, we can.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Sandoval.
You got it. Okay. Actually, I don't believe I have a motion yet to approve the consent agenda minus those 3 items.
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus item 8.3, 8.4, and 8.25.
24.
24.
All right, I'll second that. So we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes.
Are we going to do it vocally?
It looks like it came up, yeah.
Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Sorry about that. I was ready to discuss.
Motion moves is approved, 4 yeses and 1 absent. Okay. Moving along to the Human Resources Report. Ms. Sarah Martinez?
Yes, thank you. Just 2 quick responses or requests. So with the HR report, we've been monitoring for a few years now retention rates, and we made a change to some of the policy. But the first thing is, I know Dr. Davidson, you shared with us, and I was pulling up the numbers, the retention rate from 2019 to 2020. Our staff and community have shared their interest in learning, and I wanted to highlight that it was reported at that time in a recent email, 87.08%, and then in 2020 to 2021, which is this school year, the retention rate did go up to 81.25%. Are we tracking, or do you have any updated data or in a future board report? Because I do see some teachers and staff members leaving the district. Do we have any of the numbers up to date of staff leaving during this current year?
Sure. President Sandoval, Ms. Sam Martinez, members of the board, if it would be, I think, better for me if you wouldn't mind to put in a Friday report. That way I can capture everything. As you can see, with our staffing, it's kind of a fluid scenario, ups and downs, and Certainly as we work through COVID-19 and returning back to school, I'd like to get you exact numbers. So if I can do that, please, in an upcoming Friday report.
Thank you, and that's definitely
Thank you.
appropriate. And the reason why I ask is we do have a policy, GCQC, and it's going to come up in future conversation. And then in the new year, the wave of this policy is through December 31st, 2020. I would like this board to consider, as we get these numbers, that we stay up to date, and do we need to bring it back for the second year, or what we're doing, and start being proactive on how we're working through that scenario. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then the second part of the HR report, I need to bring up, it is sad, but I am so proud of her, Dr. Patty Beltram. Yes. I did not respond to her email on purpose because unfortunately, she has taken a position in Washington, D.C., and I get the chills just thinking about it. She has done phenomenal things. If you have not met her, she is steadfast, intelligent woman with our district, and she has benefited our students in many ways in regards to career technical education. And our children are going to miss her expertise, but I am confident in who she put in place. With that being said, she is leaving the district, and she is going to impact our nation's students, children, and career technical education. And I wanted to make sure that we let our community know we are so grateful for her service. So thank you, Dr. Beltram, if you're listening.
Well, and just thank you for that, Ms. Ceja Martinez. We have one more governing board meeting before Ms. Dr. Beltram leaves us, and so we will definitely have an opportunity to thank her.
And since we're voting on it, I wanted to make sure, just in case anybody wants to change their mind. Yeah. Sorry, Congress, you're just gonna have to wait. That is it for this one.
Yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that. So that said, I do need any other discussion comments around HR report? Good, all right. I do need a motion to approve 9.1, the HR report.
I move to accept the human resources report as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Ceja Martinez and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes, 4 and 1 absent. All right, moving on to the donations report. Ms. Ceja Martinez?
Yes, this is a simple call to attention. You had mentioned the importance of our students. And if you take a look at Sunrise Mountain High School class of 2020, they have donated $13,000 to their own school site so that the future benefit of their students can experience a new scoring table. So kudos to the class of 2020 for remembering how to give back. And when I think about being a student of this district and watching their impact and their positive intent, this is a monetary impact that will last for decades to come. So thank you to Sunrise Mountain High School class of 2020.
Yeah, agreed. Any discussion, questions? Ms. Doan? Oh, Senator? All right, very good. I do need a motion to approve 9.1, the donations report.
I move to approve the donations report.
I'll second. We have a motion by Ms. Ceja Martinez, a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes, 4 and 1 absent. Thank you. 9.3, the new course proposal. Ms. Ceja Martinez.
Thank you. This one does have some questions or meat to it. As I have experienced year over year, the board is presented with new curriculum, coursework, changes and proposals. This is one of the board's responsibilities. And I was looking at some of the information. I'm constantly focused on, and I'm hearing our community, special ed, and my own passion of financial literacy. So I'm going to start there in regards to these recommendations, and I see, forgive me, I'm scrolling down the page. The life skills, the leadership skills that are proposed, and I'm scrolling through it, so I apologize. Do you see what number that one is? Yes. I do see, I want to ensure when I think about our special needs students that we're also thinking about personal finance. And I wanted to know what that would look like in regards to those life skills and how we're reaching those special needs students. I believe it's independent living skills as well as the leadership strategies skills. Is that correct?
So is that?
So those are my questions in regards for that set of group. I know our special needs students will get an opportunity to work on independent living skills. Where does personal finance look like? How are the resources? I know we've received, especially in this environment, a lot of emails from our RISE students or educators. What does staffing look like? Is there a financial investment that has been considered that we'll be approving in the future? If you give me an overall statement, where are we at with that?
So we don't have anyone here this evening from the special education department. We do have Ms. Hobbs, but what I might recommend is that we work with our special education department and get that for you in a Friday report.
Perfect. And then the other one is the Arizona U.S. History Concepts. It talks about including history that has impacted Arizona. I would like to recognize that it does include cultural and societal changes. Have we looked at resources, what and who is going to approve that curriculum?
Ms. Hobbs? Ms. Hobbs from our Curriculum and Instruction Department is here with us this evening.
Right. And I apologize, I did not prepare those questions for you ahead of time, so we're definitely going in.
And so the curriculum for that is being developed by our own social studies team, Michelle Bentavania and Jennifer Mundy, as well as looking at some of our coursework through Edgenuity and our Moodle courses.
Thank you, and I would like to include that the Diversity and Inclusion Committee be a part of that conversation.
Happy to include them.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hobbs. Thank you, Ms. Sam Martinez. Any other questions, discussion? Good. All right. I do need a motion to approve the 9.3 new course proposal.
I move that we approve 9.3 new course proposals.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. And motion passes 4 yeses and one absent. Okay, moving on to section 10, action items. 10.1, superintendent goals.
Let me get my packet out.
And this is presented by Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you very much. Not only my first night up at the dais, but we're doing my goals at the same time. That's excellent. No. First of all, I want to thank the governing board for your partnership as we have worked through this process of developing goals, my performance goals for the 2020-21 school year, and the input that you've provided, your guidance, mentorship through this, I truly appreciate. First, just quickly, I'm not going to read all of the slides, but I do want to highlight for our community a couple of areas. First of all, when developing the goals, I've talked with the board about the leadership philosophy. And one of the key points that I am highlighting with our individual school communities, if you could advance that to the next slide, that'd be great. Highlighting with each of our school communities and meeting in our employee chats and just talking about shared decision-making and continuing to nurture the collaborative environment that already exists within Peoria Unified, but also continuing to develop that collaboration into a more shared model. That is an important aspect to me and a belief that I have and a philosophy that I have and want to continue that. Also, sharing with our school communities through an educational lens is the three things that, they're really the three lenses that I see the world through, and not just, I've shared with each of the school communities, not just how I see a professional world or an educational world, but really how I look at my entire life. And so I just think it's important that we continue to have these conversations with the people that we're working with, and want to highlight again how important it is that we provide a rigorous and engaging and a safe learning environment for every single child in this district, regardless of zip code, regardless of what a child comes to us, what resources they come to us with or without, but that is our first priority, as well as obviously working to build a positive climate and a collaborative culture. Again, our mission and vision, these goals were created obviously with our district's mission and vision in mind, as well as our strategic plan. And our 4 perspectives of student success, safety and well-being, stewardship of community resources, and community connection. And as you look at the superintendent's performance goals, you can see that I have framed them around those perspectives. As you read, the first goal, return students to an engaging, rigorous, and safe learning environment during the COVID-19 pandemic in the area of student success. Again, I'm not going to go through each and every one of the objectives, but I do want to highlight specifically Objective 1D for you, and that is to create, communicate, and implement a plan to measure and address the student achievement and emotional gaps developed during the virtual learning environment of the 2019-20 and 2020-21 school years, and that we started last school year and are moving into this year. I would like to thank the board. This is when I talk about that partnership and that feedback, and specifically after our conversations that we've been having with parents and students, and the guidance to add social and emotional, as well as the student achievement gap, and identifying both plans, because we know that although we are here for student learning, in order for our students to be able to learn, their social and emotional needs, physical needs have to be met as well. If you go to goal number 2, nurture a climate of positive district and school relationships built on trust, inclusivity, equity, and stakeholder voice. Again, I'd also like to highlight Objective 2D, reconvene employee chats where the superintendent, members of the district leadership team, teachers, and staff have an opportunity to listen and learn from each other. We have attended probably somewhere, 6, 7 employee chats so far. It's just a joy to be able to get out and visit teachers. Today, we worked with Liberty High School and Sundance Elementary School. A shout out for my Sundance mask that I have on this evening. I told them that I'd be wearing it this evening, so a quick shout out to Sundance. These employee chats are critical. They're important to get out and let our our teachers and staff and site administrators, to give them an opportunity to ask questions and share and celebrate, and really understand that we are a team, as not only as we go through this pandemic, but we are a team in all things. And so that's incredibly important along with the other objectives. Goal number 3, to develop a district culture of collaboration where stakeholders have an active voice in the decision-making process. As I shared earlier in those lenses, that lens of shared decision-making is absolutely critical, and from the community connection perspective, and really working to get the right people around the table to make a decision, and those right people are the ones that are most impacted by the decisions we make. Objective 3C, reconvene a student focus group to provide feedback and insight to the governing board on future decisions. That'll be an exciting piece for us as we provide opportunities for this board and myself to meet with students from a variety of backgrounds and schools, and give them an opportunity to provide us insights on decisions that we'll be making that you'll be making in the future. So that's an exciting piece there as well. And lastly, objective 4, ensure that the district and site facilities and resources are utilized in an instructionally sound, fiscally responsible, and safe manner, falling under our perspective of stewardship of community resources. I'd like to highlight objective 4A for us, to create a district task force to review the 2019-20 facility utilization study and make recommendations by the spring of 2021. And that is a study session that we will be focusing on next Wednesday, and following through with that work. So an important aspect of that. And lastly, of course, if we're going to have some goals and objectives, we need some metrics to be able to measure those, and I've provided for the board a few ways, and I think, obviously there will be more that come along that we will use, but student performance data, project-specific survey data, satisfaction survey data, budget reporting, policy updates, our facility utilization recommendations, and of course our superintendent evaluation system will be a wonderful way to provide input into that as well. And we will also be discussing that at a study session next week, that evaluation process. So with that, I present these goals to our governing board, and thank you again for your input, and ask for their approval.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, for going through that presentation. Questions, comments? Ms. Stone?
Well, I would like to say I was very pleased to see that we're going to focus on the gap that is caused by, I know that so many students were basically lost with some of the online things, and a lot of complaints about the Florida virtual, and so I was very pleased to see that we were going to focus on addressing, and helping students to catch up and close that gap back to where it belongs. So everything else looks right. Looks good.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Stone. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I guess I would piggyback on what Ms. Stone has said. Well, first of all, in general, I think that your goals that you've established are realistic and yet ambitious, so there's a good balance there. We are in definitely a unique time, so, and we do have to have some goals that are specific to this period of time, so that's great, but yeah, we're also seeing some future-looking goals, and that's wonderful. But it's like Ms. Doan said, I think it's super critical that we are addressing both the academic and the social-emotional gaps, and just recognizing and allowing that for some time for our children and our families and our communities and our staff to kind of build back that endurance and the comfort and the social confidence along with those academic skills, because, it's an adjustment, and kids are resilient, and I mean, I've had kids the last week, they've changed, from Monday to today, it's been great. I mean, you can start to see them kind of starting to come out of their shells and stuff, but it is definitely an adjustment. So, and obviously building back some of those academic skills and identifying where we see those gaps is going to be critical. So that's going to take some energy and some time, so I appreciate you pointing that out. And then as far as the piece around collaboration and continuing to build those relationships, I think through this experience that we've had that we have seen some definite opportunities and innovation and willingness on the part of our staff to work through some really hard things, and that if we can continue to build on that collaboration, we can bring that knowledge and those skills and that problem solving kind of into the fold as we continue to address some of the gaps and some of the challenges as we go forward. And I would just like to say that, yeah, as far as the, taking on the facility utilization, that's a big piece, and it's a big piece especially right now, but it's absolutely critical and it's important. And with all the different, phases and formats of education that we're seeing, that's going to be even more interesting and important to take care of. And I think that within that, really involving our community and new faces and new perspectives is going to be critical. So I would say it's a balanced plan, a balanced group of goals. It's a lot, but yeah, I think it's overall it's a really good take on things. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Martinez?
Yes, thank you, President Sandoval. First, thank you for giving the board the opportunity to provide you feed forward. From what I heard through the experience, and at least from my perspective over the past year, the communication we received from parents and the community, hopefully they could see it's been captured in how we're going to hold you accountable. And you've taken that feedback and applied it in totality. I think of some of the things which was perfect timing last night, hosting more opportunities to engage with the board, subject matter experts in a roundtable, opportunity to engage in some of these goals that are aligned to your progress and for the district. With that being said, I appreciate how we're going to measure success. We often bring that up as a board. What does success look like? And the fact that you have metrics, I appreciate that. I see some language within the objectives, consistency. My question would be is how are we going to measure consistency? What do we consider trends? And that ultimately transparency and accountability, it is not uncommon that I hear, we're making decisions behind closed doors. I would love to utilize the board docs that is available to the community where we track some of these metrics and easy access. And then some experiences I would like that I've learned from being on the board is a quarterly update with the board somehow, whether it be a board report or included in a study session as you move forward in this leading the 4th largest district. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Martinez. Yeah, I definitely agree with much of what's already been said. I know it was Ms. Stone who brought up preparedness for what is coming around the corner, right? Due to, the impact of, this pandemic that we're hopefully at the end of. But that said, I think when you take a look at your goals and the trajectory that I believe that our district has been on, just creating those inspiring environments, for our teachers, our staff, our students, and our families. And how to do that is leadership. It is taking a listen first approach to everything that we do, and an inclusionary approach as well. But also being comfortable with being vulnerable as well. And being okay with having those courageous conversations where, our response we may not have a response, and it may not always be, a great response, but honesty and building trust and building trusting teams throughout the district, that is going to help us, continue to be the leader in education, which PUSD has been known for many years, quite frankly. And that diverse thought at the table allows us to be innovative. and make global decisions on behalf of the district, and relevant decisions as well. It is important that those discussions are well-informed, and we look for input, in how we plan our move forward strategies, in PUSD. What I do also like are the, how we're including the policy updates in your goals. Those are important. When we talk about diversity and inclusion, we talk about, and diversity and inclusion across many factors, right? So there is culture, but we have a diverse student population as it relates to where they're at and their learning experience. And we need to understand that, every child, every student has ability to learn, but they may just learn differently. So, having that knowledge and our ability to make sure that we are addressing, our students, our ESS students, ELL, and again, upholding our mantra of every student, right, every day, is important. So I'm excited about what the future holds for the district under your leadership, quite frankly, and the team that's in this room. And certainly our teacher leaders. It is inspiring. I'm inspired by where we're headed, just looking forward to being part of that. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the comments and the feedback. Just one quick comment, and that goals are important for our evaluation process, and they are an important part of our partnership and our relationship as a board and a superintendent. And our community recognizes that, our team recognizes that, but I want this board and our community to also understand that regardless of that accountability and that evaluation process, I hold myself to these goals much higher, and they will direct what we do and guide us in the work that we're going to accomplish and the great things that we're going to do. And I know, Ms. Ceja Martinez, you would like to get it all done in the next few months.
98 days.
98 days, but it will take us a little bit longer. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, sir. If no further discussion or comments, I do need a motion to approve the superintendent goals.
President Sandoval,
Yes.
I move to approve Dr. Reynolds' superintendent goals.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Ceja Martinez and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 4 and 1 absent. Thank you. Moving along to enrollment capacity. 10.2, I believe that's Mr. Moss, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Moss, how are you, sir?
Good, glad to be here.
President Sandoval, just to kind of kick us off, if we could move that presentation to the next slide. Thank you very much. First of all, we're bringing our enrollment capacities to you this evening as they do impact the open enrollment process. The reason why I'm kicking this off is as deputy, I brought to you a new timeline with a focus on allowing our families and our schools additional time to be able to prepare in order to decide where those how we implement our open enrollment process. We do need to bring this to the board so that you can review our capacities and our recommendations. And so we are, as we need to post those this Friday in order for our open enrollment process to begin October 1st, we are bringing this to you this evening, and I've asked Mr. Moss to come in and share with you some of the data that we have.
Mr. Sandoval, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, and you look very nice there. We've been talking about school capacity, and we've been able to gather data for the last year or so about, and we do about capacity, school capacity, facility utilization, different ways that we collect information. And so this information we're going to provide for you tonight is really from two separate reports, right? We did the information from February of 2020 where we did the Think Smart, and they came to you and said this is their capacities, and they developed, and I'm going to use this term very specifically because we'll talk some more about it next Wednesday, but that is they used a universal model, right? They created a universal model that could be applied to all schools to estimate the capacity of schools, okay? And so they created this model for us, gave us numbers, and I'll show you where those numbers are here in just a minute. The second piece is one of the things we do every year, and that's our applied economics. We contract with them every year to do some demographics and enrollment. We give them our 40th day numbers. They compare that with how we're growing. They look at all of our new developments. They look at our trends in terms of capture rates, birth rates, lots of information that give us then an estimate of what our enrollment will be for the next 5, even 10 years in most cases. So what we've really done in this process is combine those two documents. I picked this is the elementary information, but I picked this just as a sample so you could kind of follow along and I could explain to you what information is on there. And you see the school is first, and this is on your document, you have all of them together you can look at. But really what happened there is the green column is the actual enrollment that was the 40th day from last year, okay? The yellow column is the current enrollment for our current student count, and that was as of last Friday, okay? And then we get into the projected enrollment that comes from the applied economics report that gives us what they thought the numbers would be for 2021 and 2022, and then for 5 years into the future. So that kind of tells us what they thought was going to happen. We can compare that what actually happened and then what's happening actually today, okay? The next three columns on the right there are really information that was provided to us from Think Smart. And what they did is they developed for us in this universal model, they developed for us what they considered to be the maximum number of students you could put in the school at any one time. Things like class sizes of 32 in every classroom, losing the classrooms all the time, moving them forward and moving all that process. So essentially they said if you really had to and you had enough kids, you could put 1,416 kids into Altaloma. Now, I've seen Altaloma, I'm not sure that's true, but we'll go from there, okay? The second piece that they provide for us in that second column is what they consider to be recommended capacity. And this is an architectural and facilities determination that they say you really should never run your schools at maximum capacity, that you should take some factor and decrease that capacity so that you can keep proper maintenance, so that you can use the classrooms correctly, so that you can have things like computer labs that may not be used every period every day, that you can have science labs and art rooms and those types of things that may get used most of the time, but again, not every period of every day with 32 kids in there. Okay, and that's those numbers in that second column. The next column then is that because in our schools, we recognize that there are specialized programs at any one school, right? So for example, we have some ABLE programs, we have some preschool programs that don't have 32 kids per class, even don't meet our standards of what we normally would run a first grade class compared to a kindergarten class or a preschool class. Even those numbers are different. And so they make an adjustment again to say, here is the amount that you would do if you use those rooms with the actual number of kids you plan to put in an ABLE classroom, for example, 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever the number may be. And so that's the third column there, okay? So all what we're really doing is comparing the current enrollment or projected enrollment against what our capacity, and again, I wouldn't compare it against the maximum capacity, but we would use it against the recommended capacity because that's really where we would run our schools most efficiently, okay? So that's really the explanation. Now, I went to the ones that I think we all worry about on a daily basis about being overcrowded and kind of put them all in one place. And you can see there I have Lake Pleasant, Park Ridge, Sunset Heights, and Vistancia. And that red line jumps out at you pretty quickly because what that tells me is that the one that's really over is Sunset Heights. Now, I'm going to use the term appears to be over because I want to talk to you about how we work with this information. So from there, you can see everyone, and again, we know that enrollment is down in our schools, And so you can kind of see where we're at, recommended to recommended capacity, and that Sunset Heights really is the place that we appear to have an issue, okay? I have the same information on the next slide, and this is the information for the high schools, okay? Again, actual, current, and then projected for the next 5 years. There is one change we did in the capacity calculations, and I'll explain to you why. The first one is, again, maximum, and that's 32 kids per classroom for every period of every day for the whole year. That's their maximum number. Because we use a block schedule, an architectural firm and a financial or a facilities person will tell you that they believe we run our schools at 75% of the time. Now, what that implies is that we have 1/4 of our rooms not being used at any one time during the day. One period, 25%. In other words, I'm in my classroom, I'm the teacher, I only teach in my classroom and no one comes in during my prep hour. Well, unfortunately, and I can tell you that I've been around a long time in lots of high schools, and that's not the way we run our schools. Okay, we probably have closer to 1/8 of our classrooms not used because we do have traveling teachers who fit into my prep, who move from classroom to classroom, who go from place to place and use different classrooms at different days. And so we kind of believed, and we kind of talked with principals about this and got their input, and we think a better number than instead of 75 is closer to an 87.5% number, and that's really just a number compared to the maximum. So it's just 87.5 of the maximum number that's there. And we think that better estimates how we really run our schools on a regular basis. Okay? The last column then is that 87.5, because not only do we have specialized programs in elementary, we also have specialized programs in the high schools. We have the MET, we have PFA, we have ABLE students, we have lots of different places that, again, are usually operated with smaller class sizes than the 32. We have nursing programs that use 2 classrooms at a time. We have all kinds of things that adjust that number from 87.5, and so that's a decrease in the school capacity based upon what kind of specialized programs they have. Now again, if you look at the numbers that are there, right, the one that jumps out again, is probably Liberty, 2475, compared to even those other numbers. It appears to be overcrowded or bigger than what we would recommend its capacity. So again, I use the term appears because I'm going to say something here, and as the data person, I'm scared to say this out loud. But there are times when we need to disregard the data. And I think that this is one of those times, and we're presenting you this one of those times because all of that enrollment information, other than the current information, is BC, right? Before COVID, right? So all of those assumptions that were made by applied economics, all of those models they built, all of that information that they got collected has now been blown up, right? What is our growth rates going to be? How are we selling houses? How many kids are moving in? What's happening in the cities? We don't know, and we won't know for a year or two. The second mitigating factor to these numbers is the fact that there are a significant number of our students who chose virtual instruction. And I was amazed in the last 2 weeks at how many actually chose it for the second time. And I'll give you some examples, and I'll use Liberty High School as an example because I happened to check with them. They do have 2,440 kids enrolled. They also have 660 kids who are enrolled virtually. So everyone believes that 2,440 are going to show up on Monday, and the reality is it's only going to be about 1,800 kids who are going to show up there on Monday. So it really is going to impact their capacity of their facility because they're not going to have all 2,400 of those kids that are on campus, right? The same is true of Sunset Heights. Sunset Heights has about 250 students who have chosen to be virtual. Okay, now we were surprised. I was surprised because we all were concerned that there would be a mass rush back as soon as we gave the parents the opportunity to all come back, that they would all come back all at once and we would have full classrooms and everything would move back all the way it was. At Liberty High School, for example, when they started this process, they had 668 kids who were online. After the 2-week process where the parents got to choose, they have 660 kids who are online. And they told me almost one for one, whenever we had a kid who said, no, I'm going to come back and be in person, they had another one who said, no, I'm going to go back and I want to be online. I want to be in virtual place. So it gives us indication, and I think this is a long-term implication for education. And as much as we hear about the students, some of the students not being successful, I believe there's a big group of them who are successful and are going to continue to choose to be online in the future. And so we're going to have to come up with how do we service those kids and move those forward. So I think it's going to impact our capacities and our enrollments in the future. Now, the last piece is, and this is a little bit practical, because this has impact on our open enrollment, we need to be very aware of our enrollment has declined. And I'm not sure that we're really interested in turning students away when we need the additional revenue and additional students, that money that comes with those students, I think is very important to us, and able to keep our teachers and our classified staff and everyone employed, because we are funded based upon the number of students that we have. Now, the last piece, and I think this is the best part about this, because obviously those first three kind of leave us in a wait and see, I don't know kind of a scenario. And so the best part about this is that this is just a decision that only impacts 1 year. We'll be back here next September asking you the same question: determine the capacity of our schools, which schools are reaching capacity, do we have excess capacity? Because this is not about whether the school is, what is the capacity? What we're really asking you is to determine that the schools have excess capacity, because if they have excess capacity, then we're able to operate our open enrollment process. And that's why when you look at the data, and again, I will tell you, I'm a pretty data-driven kind of guy, and this is the one time that I think we need to recognize the limitations of the data that we have and move forward with a different decision than just following what the numbers show us. And so I think that when we talked about it among all of our principals and our leadership team, I think we came back with this recommendation, and that is we'd like to continue to operate the way we have, and in order to do that we need to declare that all schools and all grade levels have excess capacity, and that will allow us to accept additional students in compliance with our enrollment priorities listed in District Policy JFB, Open Enrollment. And those enrollment policies, or enrollment priorities, if you want to see there, I think are on the second page of the policy that you can look through there. I can give you them quickly if you need to, but they're right there. I will answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
And President Sandoval, if I might, so, and again, thank you, Mr. Moss, for that presentation and all the details there. Just as to reiterate that the decision to declare that we do have excess capacity does allow us to use the enrollment priorities, the open enrollment priorities. It doesn't require us to. So that's an important element. What this does is allow our principals to continue to monitor their situation throughout the open enrollment process. And then when it is time to let families know whether or not we're able to accept them under open enrollment, that we followed that process.
Thank you for that. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Stone, you want a little time on that?
So I know that some preference is given to students who are on open enrollment already, and even siblings. So I want to know how that will impact if, like, next year everybody comes back in full or something. Okay, I'm not really expecting that, but I want to ask the question of, is that going, I guess we'll have to shut it down if our in-district students are back, the open enrollment of, they wouldn't have priority, like siblings or people that are
Mr. Sandoval, Ms. Dona, I think that's where the principals would be able to manage the numbers that are there. And I also think that what's going to happen is that like we mentioned, this is a one-year
Right.
decision. And so we'll be able to see probably by February, March, where we're at, what's happening with the numbers, how many kids are coming back, and be able to give more direction to our principals in terms of where we're moving, especially in our bigger schools. Obviously, Liberty, numbers-wise, Sunset Heights, numbers-wise, we can give them some other direction in terms of what's there. And so I think the siblings, and my other piece to that is I think the sibling numbers are relatively low. I would say they're not going to make a significant impact.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So currently, is it just, or in the last year, I should say, was it Liberty and Sunset that were both closed for capacity?
Mr. Underhill, yes.
Okay. And the other question I have is just because of the time that we're in right now and around social distancing, what consideration are we placing on social distancing because, we're still in this pandemic era as far as, increasing or opening capacity of the schools, so.
Well, I guess my comment about this is that, excuse me, Mr. Sandoval, Ms. Underhill. Social distancing is very difficult for us, as we're all aware. When we begin to talk about what's there, there's ways of doing the best we can with whatever's there. And obviously, as we begin to move and work with class sizes, it becomes probably one of the biggest decision-making systems data that we use. And so we do the best we can. We open them up. Again, it'll give us the opportunity to open up and look at them and see where we're at. And again, give more direction in terms of where we're at. Really what this does is it gives us the opportunity to make some decisions down the road once we get some better information.
Right, yeah, no, I just want to make sure that's a consideration that, because obviously our reopening plan and our, safety plan and all that, because of the time frame that we're in right now, that's important. And I guess just, so related to that is just as we keep going and we figure out how things are being flowing, that we will think about what level of capacity we really want to be at if we're still considering social distancing requirements, so.
Correct.
That's right, thank you.
Ms. A. Martinez?
Thank you, President Sandoval. Thank you for the information. First, administration, thank you for including the policy as well. I know we've received a lot of feedback over the years is what is our accountability in addressing variances in open enrollment policy, and this is the second year we've changed the policy in an effort to help mitigate class sizes, overcrowding, and so on. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention as it aligns. A couple things I'm concerned about and acknowledging the information is impacted as a result of our new environment, and we don't know what variables that we have going forward. And as I process, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard the recommendation is to do and accept open enrollment students business as usual. Is that an accurate statement?
Mr. Sandoval, Ms. A. Martinez, I think this gives us the opportunity to manage open enrollments that we've done currently, yes.
Okay, thank you. My concerns with that experience is we have in this district historical trends where site principals have been instructed to accept everybody. Now, when we continue to visit school sites, and I would agree with Ms. Underhill, social distancing is a concern. Part of one of the main reasons is class sizes. And if we're at full capacity at 32, 35, we can't social distance because everybody is packed into the classrooms. So I'm processing that information, class sizes. The second thing I'm thinking of is, you're right, you've highlighted virtual learning is changing. I believe, based on what I've heard too, we do have a handful of students that are excelling, and it sounds to me, based on what I heard last night, we are working actively to create an online platform that is proprietary to PUSD, which will put us in a position where we can offer online classes. Do we have a trajectory, timeline of when that's going to be ready?
Well, currently, we already have the curriculum in place to be able to offer online classes to our high school students. Our goal, and our teams have just started to meet, and so I can't tell you at this point whether it will be accomplished by January or whether it'll be into the spring. But our goal is to move that curriculum down into the middle schools to be able to provide that learning on our platform. And I think that we could make great progress towards that by the beginning of next school year.
Okay. Thank you for enlightening me. The information regarding to, I'm going to switch to variances. We have committed this year, and I will still stay committed to prioritizing safety. When we determine open enrollment, do we have any data supporting in-district versus out-of-district students on the two main schools? We'll just keep it to Liberty High School and Sunset Heights.
Yes, Liberty High School in particular. An example will be at Liberty High School, for example, and this is, I pulled the last 3 years of data. For example, the last 3 years, they have declined consistently over time. The number of students from inside the district who apply there has declined from 237 down to 144 last year. And the number who variance out of Liberty High School has increased from 282 to 365. So the reality is that Liberty High School is actually losing students to their other schools more than they are gaining from their other schools. And so it's in the district kids. Outside, we have also had a continuous decline, 260 students 3 years ago, and now we're down to about 225. And that has been a decline in the outside the district variance as they come in. So the reality is we're almost breaking even with, if you just keep all your kids or keep your kids and don't let anybody in or out, you're almost at the same number that's there. Most of them go to Sunrise Mountain. When I've talked with Sunrise Mountain, talked with parents who want variance to Sunrise Mountain, most of them respond, Liberty's overcrowded, I'm going to Sunrise Mountain to get out of it themselves. So I think that if we start to reduce the number from in-district or from out of the district, I don't think we'll get relief, because I think what's going to happen is the kids who choose to go to Sunrise Mountain will just go back to their normal feeder school, which will be Liberty, okay? Sunset Heights has been a little bit more controlled. They have virtually remained constant for probably the last 3 years. They've probably been right at around less than 80 overall, I think, is their total number that they've been for the last 2 or 3 years, and they've just been sticking at that number, and you can just watch the kids flip from grade to grade to grade as they go along. There's one group that I think they have a real big class around 6th or 7th grade that has a significant number of out-of-district kids, because I think that was one of the first ones that got to come into the school, and they came in, and then we've cut those off, and now they keep rolling through the system as it goes through. So Liberty is almost an equal balance, and I think Sunset Heights has remained constant basically for the last 3 years.
Thank you. I do not want to make decisions based on trying to recoup dollars. We've said it before, students have money tied to them. And it's a very challenging balance. But when I hear time and time again, and parents saying social and emotional, relationship building, opportunities to engage in social activities, football at the high school level, when they have 120 kids on a campus or in the freshman team, how many opportunities do they get to really engage in football? So saying yes to business as usual, I have serious concerns. If we're really going to be active in trying to mitigate social and emotional well-being and give all our students, our in-district students first, an opportunity to engage, we need to focus on enrollment so that they have an opportunity to participate in one of those new courses, because what I saw is there was some fine print that said capacity is difficult, we have to look at criteria. I would take that approach with band, sports. We only have so many seats and teachers to support these programs. So if we're going to be actively focusing on giving our children an opportunity to build a relationship, I recognize those dollars are tied to them, but I'm not at the expense of giving a student who really wants to participate cannot. And I am not comfortable at this point accepting a business as usual model.
And so earlier when you asked that question, business as usual, we were talking about following the governing board policy. If you're talking about the philosophy that is historically been, right, this take them all because they come with dollars. That is an absolute reality. I would use Lake Pleasant as an example in working with working with Lake Pleasant last year and talking about how we manage the Lake Pleasant enrollment, not from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but we manage it from kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and really taking an approach that what is best for kids, what is best, where are we going to be 4, 5, or 6 years from now, not make a decision of take them all in kindergarten, and when those kindergartners get to 6th grade, now we're in trouble because we need, right, it just continually cascades. And so our approach, certainly last year, and will continue, and that's why it's important to make this recommendation, is that we can make those decisions with purpose and not close schools, because by determining that there is not excess capacity, then we shut off open enrollment, regardless of priority, regardless of any situation, regardless of where we are 6 months from now with our numbers. So what we're asking is that we do this open enrollment process with purpose, and not use that philosophy from the past.
I appreciate you acknowledging reality. There has definitely been a policy in this district, and then there has been action that does not follow. And this board has been actively trying to mitigate that by changing the policy, but if our actions and procedures and what's being enforced and holding our site administrators accountable, that's where I see the disconnect, and that lays in your wheelhouse. And our wheelhouse is the policy, and listening to parents saying they want their children to have opportunities to engage in social interaction. Has there been thought of any other options, I should say? Because I don't know what options we have. You're making a recommendation. What else was considered?
So unfortunately, the way that our policy reads, there's 2 options. There is determining there is excess capacity and determining that there is not excess capacity. This is not the time, but as you mentioned, we have talked about this open enrollment policy a couple of times. I think there is room for improvement in the language here that doesn't put us in these 2 options and would give us some flexibility to be able to manage this situation. It's also important to note that we're here with this recommendation because of the past 6 months, because of COVID-19. And if we were 100% confident in the data, then we might be coming with a different recommendation. But because we don't know where we will be in January or February, then what we're recommending is that this gives Mr. Moss, it gives myself, it gives the entire team an opportunity to work with our schools and do what makes sense versus just one way or the other.
let me just make sure I understand, is we have two options, accept it or don't. If we accept it, we still give you an opportunity to mitigate risk as we proceed and self-monitor on a site basis. So if this capacity is 900, for example, and we recognize we have 110 kids on a team, or there's not enough, some factors like that, you could tell a principal to not accept 900, to keep capacity at 850. That's something that's within your purview. Is that accurate?
That's right. We work together as a team to make sure that that takes place. And remember, right now it's 20% staying home. If it's, let's just say it's 10 who stay home, and if it's 10% of the incoming class, that number compounds over the 4 years. And so in 4 years, we could find that we are 400 kids below. And this allows us to be able to adjust and, again, complete this process with purpose and not just
Thank you.
wait to see what happens.
Perfect. So for me, definitely a future board meeting, future agenda item as we reflect on our ever-evolving environment, whether it be COVID, whether it be our e-campus, which I'm excited to hear that could change some things. This, for me, is where trust is built. And in order to build that trust throughout your 10 years, providing that transparency and accountability. So in the future, I would like board reports, either quarterly or even displayed as 98 days, even displayed on board docs to build that trust with our community, because that's something that we're hearing them concerned about class size. How are we taking an active approach to address that?
Well, thank you. And Mr. Moss loves to come to the board meetings and complete reports, so he'd be excited to do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Was not a smile of concurrence to that statement, by the way.
Wait, I got to put, wait, here.
There you go.
I'm better now.
Thank you, board members, for the conversation. And Ms. Anna Martinez, I think the latter part of that conversation is right. And Dr. Reynolds, when you talk about this policy, it is how we move forward in following these policies with fidelity, right? I've always said, as a district, we should be very proud of individuals wanting to bring their families to the city of Peoria and their students to our district because of just our reputation of being world class, right? That said, we shouldn't just not at the expense of a world class experience for our students and families, right? One of the things that we don't want to do, and this is going to piggyback a little bit on Ms. Underhill's statement around social distancing, right? So because we don't know, what may be coming around the corner, how that factors into, not really this policy, but more of just doing the right thing to ensure that we're, not putting our teachers, students, and families or compromising their health and wellness, factoring that in too, right? When you talk about the decline in our numbers, that is inclusive of online and face-to-face, right? That number is, we're declining,
Yes.
period.
Correct.
Right, okay. I think, again, I think it's, really, like Ms. Martinez stated, I mean, it's following this policy with fidelity, and just making sure that we continue to err and really focus on why we're here, which is our kids, and ensuring that they have a world-class experience throughout all that we offer as a district. So thank you for being a data-driven individual. I think you do a great job at understanding the data, but more importantly, how we humanize that data, right? I think that's important to make sure that as we talk about numbers, it's a human being that's behind that number, and we just need to make sure that we always have that top of mind. So thank you again. Any further discussions, comments? Yes, Ms. Down.
I have a couple of questions that I just want it clearly stated. As of now, is the district receiving equal money for virtual students and in-person students?
Mr. Sandoval, Ms. Stone, I would say, I'll wait for you, go ahead, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Doan. Typically, an AOI student is funded at a percentage that's less than an in-person student. For example, a full-time AOI student is 95% compared to full funding. However, I'll remind the board that we are planning to evaluate our calculation effective September 30th, 2020, our 40th day, and there'll be an either-or funding criteria based on that number of 105% of our 40th day enrollment or 98% of last year. But in a non-COVID year, it is a lower percentage.
All right, thank you. And also, are we considering the teacher workload if they're doing both virtual? Because I know that some teachers are doing both. They're doing both virtual and in person. Are we considering the workload of our teachers in this calculation?
Mr. Sandoval, Ms. Stone, it is probably the number one conversation we have here on a daily basis is how do we provide them with new technology, new training, new opportunities, what is their requirements, how are we able to be more efficient. It is the number one thing that I know that they're working on in the instruction area with Mr. Schuff about how we make it easier. And I can give you some places, and we can certainly at a later time, we can go visit some places that are doing things who have to do that, who are doing it in multiple different ways, and show you how we've begun to work with individual schools who are trying to innovate, if you will. We have a school, and I'll use an example, we have a school that has purchased webcams for every teacher and microphones, and they wear them, and they put the webcam here, and they teach to their class, and the students that are on there can watch the teacher, see the board, go through that process because they have both in-person students and virtual students at the same time. We have most cases where we have single delivery time periods. In other words, and I'll use 8th grade or 7th grade as an example, we have, at most schools, we only have one math teacher who teaches both 7th grade and 8th grade math. And so they're gonna teach maybe one section of online in the first period. Second period, they're gonna teach kids face-to-face, third period, face-to-face, fourth period, face-to-face. So but never, or not never, but in this case, they won't mix, okay? And so we have, in most cases, separated the virtual from the online and again, in the elementary schools, in probably 85% of the classrooms. At the high schools, it's a little bit different, and they're working with the teachers to come up with new methods of being able to do that.
Have we heard from our teachers how they're handling and what their, feelings are regarding even like the new open enrollment ideas?
So what I would say is, yes, that's part of those employee chats. That's what we're reaching out and talking with them about. I would point out that the decision to determine excess capacity does not impact that discussion. But there are implications, and I absolutely appreciate you thinking about their workload and their situation right now as the students come back next week and the difficulties and the challenges that come with the situation that they're in. But Mr. Moss is exactly right. We are working on what that might look like for the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Any further questions, discussion? No? All right, so I do need a motion to approve 10.2 enrollment capacity.
Okay. I move that we approve 10.2 enrollment capacity.
Second? So we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes. 4 and 1 absent. 4 yeses, sorry, and 1 absent. Thank you, board members. Moving along to 10.3. Mr. Moss, thank you, sir. Discussion and consideration to reconvene the school calendar committee. Ms. Danielle Airy.
Thank you, Mr. Charlie. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. This agenda item is to provide you with some background information relative to our school calendar approval process and for your consideration to vote to reconvene the school calendar committee. I'll remind you that this agenda item is coming to you as part of your governing board policy, ICA. This policy states that you will approve the school calendar following recommendations from the superintendent and the calendar committee. The policy goes on to discuss that those calendars are approved in a 3-year, or 3 years of rolling calendars, rather, and we'll go back to that here in just a moment. I'm bringing it forward to you today as part of a newer policy, policy BDF, which you have previously approved. This policy, if you'll recall, states that before we move forward with any work of a committee, that we will provide you with the purpose and overview of the timeline and share with you any resources that we would be providing to that committee in advance of you calling for the committee. So I did want to make sure that we reference that before we move forward. The chart that I bring to you jumps back to policy ICA, and this is part of the regulation. Most, actually all of you, have seen this chart previously, and it is, as I said, part of that recommendation. If it were to go on beyond the 23-24 school year for the years that follow, you would see what my son now knows to be an ABB pattern, as it just continues on in perpetuity, but it will show you what your responsibility per the policy would be this year, which would be to review and ratify the subsequent school year calendar, and then vote to approve 3 more years of calendars. Of course, that is coming to you after the committee goes through and does their work to develop and recommend future school calendars. So I wanted to make sure to remind you of that. And I will note that per the policy, it says you will make those approvals by November 15th of the year. So that is the timing that we bring this to you in the fall. As I reference and speak about the calendar, this is also something that will be familiar to you, and you'll see our school calendar that we have posted on our website and that is distributed out to families. The committee approves the start date for the school year, the end date, and the holidays that are to be observed, as well as many of the breaks that take place throughout the school year. It also includes parent-teacher conferences. It does not include those modified Wednesdays that we have come to know here in our district, what were previously the modified Mondays. So before you, I bring, per the policy, the purpose, which would be in accordance with ICA, that the calendar committee would convene to approve to recommend a 22-23, 23-24, 24-25 school calendar to present to you. We have just some tentative proposed dates on there. Typically, their work takes about 3 meetings, but of course, we would schedule additional meetings at the recommendation of the committee. Their work would wrap up, and you would be looking to vote on that item Thursday, November 12th, and at that time, the committee would be terminated. And then also per policy, we would be providing them with training on Arizona's open meeting law, as well as any research that they may need to make their informed decisions. So I bring this for you with the recommendation that you vote to reconvene the school calendar committee. And I'll pause for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Airy. Discussion, questions? Ms. Stone?
No, thank you.
All right. Ms. Unreal?
Just wanted, will we use our usual process for identifying committee members?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Underhill, thank you for that question. I should have noted that earlier. Yes, the process that you have prescribed is that we have the form that typically is shared and that goes out to our community at the start of each school year. You've asked that that casts a wide net for any of those who are interested to be able to submit that form. That way it allows us to kind of create a bank of community members and parents that may be wanting to engage around a particular topic. So that process took place this year, and so we'll be going through those with your vote and approval this evening to make sure that we have a representative sample across all demographics in our community to participate. I should note as well that Mrs. Ceja Martinez serves on that committee on your behalf per the decision and vote that you made at the beginning of the school year.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Ceja Martinez?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Airy, and I appreciate you reaching out prior. I did think and process, I have two questions. One relates to, in this current situation and looking at academics, how do we come up with 180 days? And you mentioned that this committee will determine the end date. So that's a twofold question. Could they extend the school year? If so, yes. How is that thought, or no?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Ceja Martinez, that falls under an additional policy, and that's policy IC, and that is the school year policy. And I'm sure Dr. Reynolds will add on to anything that I might miss in reference to this policy, but it basically says that the school year will be 180 days of instruction or the equivalent number of minutes of instruction per school year. And so there are certainly school districts that have alternative calendars, but we have followed that policy and developed calendars that are in accordance with that. Dr. Reynolds, I'm not sure if you have anything to add that you wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Perfect. In lieu of some of the academic challenges we're going to face moving forward, could that be a consideration at the board and the district to increase the number of days in the future on these calendars? Because if we're looking at a 3-year term.
The answer to that is yes, it could be a consideration. We would have to, as a board, first change policy IC. And so that would be a discussion from the board to change that policy. We do not have enough time to do that and create a calendar for the upcoming year.
And I appreciate that candor. So just something to consider as you reflect as a team and we come up with a progression plan. Consider even looking at the calendar and maybe even reconvening whatever the calendar committee sets forth now with what the information they know, and then if that's an option to reconvene in the future. And then last one, we're always talking about measurement of success. And you do survey, because I've seen that before. What are we looking at here to determine if these calendars are what our staff and parents and students are seeing as working?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Ceja Martinez, thank you for that question. So typically, the calendar committee does give direction to administration to conduct a survey as part of their work when they convene. So we can certainly have that conversation with them to show them past surveys that we've used and ask what questions or considerations we might want to put into a future survey. And in our timeline, I've kind of looked for a time that I think we might be able to conduct that survey and still be able to bring forward a recommendation in accordance with policy.
Thank you, and that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Thank you, fellow board members. Just to kind of piggyback on Ms. Martinez's initial question, just around the extension of the school year. I think, certainly, as we go through this, and if there's deemed a need, and those are discussions that we have the flexibility, really the autonomy to have at a future date to determine whether or not that's the right solution for whatever challenge that may be in front of us. Yes. Okay. So that said, I do need a motion to approve the reconvening of the school calendar committee.
I move that we approve the reconvenience of the school calendar committee.
Second?
We have a motion by Ms. Stone and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes, 4 yeses, 1 absent. Thank you very much. Ms. Ari, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 11.1, COVID-19 updates. We have the entire team.
So, President Sandoval, members of the board, I would like to invite Mr. Gay, our Chief Technology Officer, to begin this evening. The reason why I'm kicking us off is just to point out to the board that Mr. Gay has taken a special interest in this process, and we thank him for stepping up and helping us in this. And so he'll be leading us through this discussion this evening.
Very good. Mr. Gay, welcome.
Well, thank you, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, and colleagues. The purpose of this agenda item tonight is to provide an update to the governing board on health data, employee and parent survey results, and athletic program data relative to our implementation of Stage 4 of our Return to School plan. Now, my role, as Dr. Reynolds has indicated, is just to provide a brief introduction and outline of what staff will present. We've got, as you've noticed, a number of staff members ready to present parts of this review tonight. Next slide, please. You've seen this before, but very quickly, as a reminder, we want to and we remain committed to ensuring that, first and foremost, safety and well-being of our students and staff as we go through this process, and to ensure that we take action always with fiscal responsibility in mind, that everything we do in total alignment with our relevant external agencies and health officials, and then finally, that we always and everywhere seek and consider input from our stakeholders as we make decisions going through this process. Next slide, please. Tonight's presentation is really divided into 4 parts. First part, we'll talk about, Mr. Mike Moss will talk about health benchmark data. We have two actual surveys that were taken, and first, Dr. Carter Davidson will give us a summary of the employee survey results, followed by Ms. Danielle Airy giving us a summary of parent survey results, and then finally we'll finish up with Peoria Unified School District's athletic director, Mr. Mark Ernst, who's going to give us a summary of our athletic programs, current status, and plans for that. And so we'll go to the next slide, and we'll turn it. By the way, I think that's a great likeness of you on that slide, Mike. But anyway, if you'd go ahead with the health benchmark data, that would be great.
President Sandoval, members of the board, now you see why I don't like to come to the meetings. So I'm here to present to you data that we've seen it now for 6 or 8 weeks. We did get new information this morning. It is always a harrowing 30 minutes waiting for the updates to hit the website. You can see there that our numbers have basically, from a data perspective, have remained constant for the last 3 weeks. The small fluctuations that you see there are, from my accounting days, immaterial to the overall picture of what we're seeing. And so those were the numbers we got today, 25.04, 3.22, and 2%. Again, we've talked about the idea that there's small changes that would be impacts. 2 or 3 cases could impact those things as they go along. We do want to kind of show again, the overall trend in the number of cases, because I think it really is the important piece. The picture is really the important piece of how far we've come, not just in the Peoria School District, but Maricopa County, the state of Arizona, all the things that we've done, all those mitigating factors that we've put in place to continue to have the cases decline. Okay. Again, positive tests, we keep moving along there. I know that we have and hospitalizations. Though I want to go back to the test, just talk about the test just for a second. Is, you know, what really is happening there is they're starting to realize that they need to test as many people as they possibly can, and we're getting some local tests the last 2 weeks. We've had some at the city of Glendale, at the arena. We've had one at the Peoria Sports Complex. That's kind of pushed us forward with that too. So we can move forward, and the hospitalizations are looking pretty good, but at the same time, the key to this is that our data has remained stable. It continues to provide the information that we need to begin to move forward and begin to open starting on Monday.
Ms. Sarah Martinez?
President Sandoval, I just have one question. How are we supporting our staff to get tested? If we're trying to increase the numbers and now we're walking into an in-person environment, are they given time or opportunities?
Mr. Sandoval, Ms. Sarah Martinez, my answer for you there is we did let them, they were all aware of the 2 sites, and we put it out in an employee information and communication that they could go to Glendale and to the city of Peoria for the last few weeks. I know it has been 2 or 3 Dr. Carter Daverson has a perfect answer for you, so I'll turn it over there. How's that?
President Sandoval, Ms. Ceja Martinez, I don't know if it's a perfect answer, Mr. Moss, but you got the first part right, which is certainly letting our staff know of the opportunities, right, to go get those tests that you mentioned through the city of Peoria and our other contacts there. But I would just say on behalf of our benefits package and on behalf of our COVID response team that I think we've talked about before, certainly when anyone is working with their administrators at a campus level or in a department and they are going to, they're not feeling well, they're sent home, what have you, I'll tell you right now, our staff has been on top of it. They without a doubt go take advantage of whether it's our benefits plan or one that they're on, and they are getting tests. What we find, of course, is the timeliness of the results is the big variable there. But I do believe our staff, they're owning that, Ms. Ceja Martinez.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moss. Quick question for you. And I think this question is more for, us and the public. Can you kind of go through, because when you go online to look at the data, right, some individuals go to ADHS and see this map of just Peoria being in all red, right? And then you go to another side, it looks a little different. But can you delineate between the two, just so everybody kind of understands the difference?
Mr. Sandoval, members of the board, yes. We've had lots of questions from our staff, and it took me a little while to figure out why the question was coming up. But they say, why are we going back when everything is red, when everything is red? And I finally realized what they were doing is looking at the Arizona Department of Health Services map. And the Arizona Department of Health Services map that shows zip code information is really nothing more than a cumulative number of tests that have occurred, or excuse me, it's not tests, cumulative number of cases that has occurred since March. And then they color code each of those. Well, the whole map is red. And so when you look at that information, it looks like we are, example, in one of our zip codes is looking really high. We've looked at 85345. It's our biggest one, has about 2,095 cases, and it turns red on the map. That information is just a cumulative number, and it's compared only to what's happening then. We actually use the information that's on the Maricopa County school data website that provides us with, I think it's return to school guidance is where it's on there. It's on the Maricopa County. It's also on our website that people can go and look up those things. But that gives us then the multiple measures. It gives us the 3 measures, and it changes over time. And so it gives you a comparison of week to week in terms of what the data has done. And when you look at that map, for example, all of the zip codes that contain any of our schools are all in the yellow. And so I did for a long time have a hard time understanding, they say it's red, they say it's red, they say it's red, and it didn't make sense. And then when we started talking about where are you looking, I could see the difference. And so we use the Maricopa County data. It is the data that changes and is current to the week, as opposed, well, current to as close as we can get to that time. And then the Arizona Department of Health Services zip code data is simply a rolling number of cases since March. And so
Got
we
it.
provide two different pieces of information.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Any other discussion questions from Mr. Moss? Ms. Doan? No?
Oh, I'm sorry, not for
We
me.
good? Thank you, sir.
Then I will pass it off to Dr. Davidson. Thank you for saving
Yes,
me
sir.
last time.
Thank you. We'll start our presentation by, first of all, saying thank you to all of our employees who chose to respond to our survey. And also, I'd also just like to, you can go and leave that slide there, but also want to just take note of that picture there. We talked about it early on. This is a picture of Mr. Hammond, but I don't know if you can tell by looking at just the eyes of the students in that picture, and that's kind of what we've just been experiencing over the last few weeks, and I just really want to encourage our staff for the 3 through 12, our students, they're going to experience that same thing. It's been fun to be out and see our teachers with our kids, so really excited about that. But thank you, Ms. Arian, to your team for those photos. To that next slide there, what we wanted to highlight here, and it is a very colorful slide, see if everyone can make sense of that, but what that's telling you is that we had all of our schools and many of our departments represented in the data that we're going to talk about tonight. We did have 1,475 respondents. I know, Ms. Ceja Martinez, you're going to probably ask me, that is 35% of our total employee group. So, of course, I'll put it out there, we would love more respondents, but I was pleased with that response. And again, all schools and departments were accounted for. Next slide, please. According to this information here, you will see that we had 35% of our administrative staff respond, 24% of our classified staff, and 46% of our certified staff respond to the questions in the survey. Next slide, please. I wanted just to point out a few of the questions that we asked our employees. And this first one, question number 5, was asking our employees to respond if they understood the material in our return to work plan. As you see there, 1,358 out of that 1,475 felt like they understood the plan. The piece that, another question that I wanted to highlight was talking in regards to PPE. That was question number 9, and I was looking for what type of responses did we get in regards to PPE, and what did our employees feel about having access to that information? And you can see there, and I wanted to give you this one because that was our lowest percentage of positive response, essentially, at 63%. So that tells us that we certainly have to continue to work with our staff on understanding how to use that personal protective equipment, but also realizing where it is and how it's going to help them in their role. What I wanted to highlight, and again, I just showed you a few questions there, but our range of response in terms of a positive response was anywhere from 87% to that 97%. Next slide, please. What you see here, and I'm going to highlight, first of all, the question, are you comfortable and confident in being able to return to campus? The 1 through 7 up there means that was the range, 1 being I am not confident at all, to 7 being I am totally confident. You can see our average response was a 4.48. So a little bit higher than I would say a medium response, right, of our employees. So we know that certainly is a data set we want to lean into. With that said, if you can turn to the next slide, we had 658 comments out of those 1,475 individuals that responded, and those 658 were only asked to give me comments if they felt like their confidence level was a 4 or less. And so we went through and just highlighted a few of the comments for you there, but we kind of tried to summarize that qualitative data, and what we found are things that I think we've even talked a little bit about tonight, our class size and how are we utilizing our staff to reduce class size. Social distancing, is that something we can even do? Again, the need for PPE, and lastly, and Mr. Moss spoke to this as well, is we are having to work through the online environment, and how do we staff for that? And we do have many people, as you've heard me share before, that we're trying to support with health needs. So those are some of the main concepts that came through that qualitative data. And lastly here, next steps. First and foremost, we just have to continue to communicate well. We do have our back to school plan. We have just a how should I say this, constantly changing and being updated information on our employee FAQs that we're always trying to drive our employees to. We do have now, of course, the survey data that I need to be able to get out to our leaders. We can disaggregate this data by site and make certain that our leaders know how their employees are feeling. And I know Dr. Reynolds speaks to this as part of the shared decision, but we need to listen, continue to listen to our employees as they're back in action. So really excited about that piece. And then you see those little pictures there to guide the conversation on what I would call monitoring and adjusting. Mr. Moss and I and team will continue to look at our staffing and how to support the best learning environments possible. Make certain, in some cases, we don't want to do this, but as we get into December, look at our master schedules. Do we need to change things at the campus level to ensure success? And lastly, just really ensure that our staff has what they need to be successful and safe. So I'll stand for any questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. Dr. Davidson, questions, comments? Ms. Down? Ms. Underhill?
I really appreciate that we did the survey. I mean, that's fantastic because it just tells us kind of where we're at and where we need to be. And there's just a lot of questions, and trying to picture all that. But I really do feel like, having experienced it a little bit myself, that our plan is good. And, nothing's going to be perfect, but we're really able to do the best we can. And I mean, I've seen that the kids they've been through some of this stuff. Like, there's some new normal stuff in place in the communities already. So they've been, from where I've been, they've been very patient, very able to kind of follow these new protocols. And it just takes some time and some patience, but that's just a new part of how it is. Just little nuances, I think, just from, as being a teacher, are just those little things like, you go through a lot of spray really fast, and like, how do you get that filled without having to fill a work order? So it's like, those things are going to come up, and I think that we're anticipating that, but just, we know where we have PPE, but how do we get more? How do, all those little things. So I guess I just want to say that I think we have an excellent plan from what I've learned, and putting those things actually into place, I think it becomes a lot more normalized and routine very quickly. It's just overwhelming to think about it all at once, but and we'll continue to figure out those little things as we go. But I think it sounds good, and I'm so glad that our staff had an opportunity to kind of voice those concerns, and that we'll continue to monitor that as we go. So thank you for going to that effort. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Sarah Martinez?
Thank you, President Sandoval, Dr. Davidson. You did read my mind in regards to percent response rate, and I know, Dr. Reynolds, this is part of your objective, and here's a great baseline, and as we continue to move forward, that pulse check that we say the response rate is at 35%, we are going to make an active effort to increase by 10%. I know you sent us in a Friday report the survey results. Is that accurate? Did I see?
I am not
sure.
certain.
Okay. If not, then may I ask for the Excel sheet, please, as I love color, but this one was challenging to read. As I look at specifically, the data, we continue here and rely on data accuracy to make informed decisions and to make a great plan. And I'm still finding it concerning and wanting to dig down the root cause, why are only 35% is responding in totality. And then I appreciate you breaking it down, and being leaders of this district, we should model best practice. And when I see site administrators or administrators in that bucket only 31% responding, we need to look back and understand, do our administrators not understand the why and the impact of these surveys that are crucial in driving a change, staffing, things like that. And then the last one is the having access to necessary PPE. I appreciate the vulnerability and recognize that we have some work to do. And under identifying, is that a communication breakdown? I know Ms. Myers broke it down last time when we asked about the finances. We have plenty of supplies. I'm getting emails that staff are still buying supplies. That is not refundable. We clarified that. So really trying to understand what's the root cause Do they not have it on their site? Is it, what's the issue? So thank you for bringing that to our attention and being honest with that feedback. And with that, I stand.
President Sandoval, Ms. San Martinez, real quick, I just wanted to highlight, and I told the team I was going to, I just spaced on it, but we've been very communicative in our employee chats on the PPE, and like Ms. Underhill spoke about, maybe just needing more hand sanitizer. I think we find out things as we go, and some things maybe we don't know until we start doing it, and we've been working with our staff to ensure that they do have access and more knowledge on that PPE that exists. So I just wanted to let our team know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Ms. San Martinez. Dr. Davidson, we don't need to go back, but the questions that were asked that you highlighted, one of the questions was, do you understand the plan, I believe. So one of the things, as I visited schools and received emails, et cetera, is around that exact question. Because I think if that's the question, the plan has so many facets to it, if you will, right? It's the PPE, it's the opening of schools, it's what if someone contracts the virus, right? And I think that's where a lot of the questions, that, at least that are coming my way, are coming from, is that crisis management, what if, right? Someone contracts the virus. So I think when we ask these questions, knowing that, this plan, it has so many, aspects to it. And when you get the responses, on the spreadsheet, it may be helpful to drill down to some specifics, around the plan versus an overarching question, just as a thought. And I only say that because of, it seems like there's still some questions out there, but more around, what if someone does contract the virus? So just food for thought more than anything else.
Thank you.
But aside from that, I think, the increased communication, is critical without question. And just making sure that we over-communicate. We are very honest and clear in our communications on, based on whatever the subject is, right? It's just an important component to, again, being intentional about, about everything as we go through, these times. Communication is mission critical to establish that trust, and even I think as we build on that trust, I believe that our numbers from a survey perspective may increase just organically, as we move forward as a district with, I don't want to call it new, because I think we always had a great culture, but as we rebuild the culture that we've been known for, I think we're going to see those numbers increase as well. So thank you for this. All right. No further discussion or questions discussion for Dr. Davidson? So who's up
I'll
next?
turn it over to Ms. Airy.
All right, Ms. Danielle Airy.
Thank you. Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the board. I would like to present to you tonight the results of our parent survey data. I will remind you that this survey opened on Friday, September 11th. It closed at the end of the day on Wednesday, September 16th, and the purpose was to gather information from our parents on their comfort level with our return to school, our plan, and our communication as well. So we will move along, and I'll show you one more, the first of, I think, a few more busy graphics that you'll see, but I will explain and help to break this down for you just a little bit. What you're seeing is kind of divided in color by some green teal on the left and some bluish colors on the right, and that is a representation of all of the schools in our district that were participating in this survey, every single one of them. And in fact, 12,491 respondents, which represents 48% of our district households. You'll see the blue and green almost evenly split. In fact, I think it's about a 50-50 split on Title I to non-Title I schools that are represented here. And that gives us a lot of information in and of itself that we are getting the message out to our families to participate. So we'll move along, and I'll show you one of the questions that we asked was, of course, well, one of the first questions we asked was, what is your choice going back now that we have more information, more data that we can share, and more details on the plan and what those two different environments will look like? Will you be returning to classroom instruction or virtual instruction? Our numbers there stayed relatively the same. So about 28% of our families choosing that virtual, with the remainder, just about 70% or so, that were choosing to send their children back into the classroom. We followed up with that to ask them about their comfort level with that decision, and 90% of those that responded had a level of comfort with the decision that they had made. We did have an open-ended response, and we'll move that along, an open-ended question to ask, what is it that would make you more comfortable? And we will certainly get you those full responses. There are thousands upon thousands of them. Mr. Moss had the pleasure of downloading that file to send my way, so there's some light reading for you, but certainly many responses. And we do go through those, and we do read those responses, and it's of course varied. And you can see a few of them that we've selected here for you. But we are seeing anything from those families that are saying what they would need is just more time, to those families sharing with us some more specific things, like I want to understand what happens if there is a case or if somebody gets sick. We are taking that feedback into consideration already, so you have already likely seen, if you were on social media or on our Return to School page, a number of our responses to what we are seeing. Our latest Lunch and Learn features our lead nurse, Lisa Alexander, and she's breaking down things like what is the mask requirement and how to properly put on, take off a mask, and care for it. And we're sharing many of those with our employees as well, because the information really does stay the same. We also have her talking through what happens if someone gets sick, what is the district's response, what types of things can I expect. So we are trying very hard to begin and have already started to respond to much of what we've been seeing. And you'll see that continue on as we kind of go through and as this pandemic continues to evolve over the course of this semester. We then asked our families to share with us, do you know where to find the information related to our safety plans and to our response? We feel we had a really tremendous response to that one. 94% of those that took the survey did respond that they know where to go for that information. And we asked about the frequency of our communication. That's important. And so we had 87% that said our communication was just about right as far as the volume that they are receiving. And so, that is certainly important when you compare that to that previous slide that we saw relative to the confidence level, or the comfort level, I should say, that parents had in their decision. What we're hopeful is that we're producing communication that is giving them that comfort, and that they at least understand, what their options are and what the mitigation strategies are, and where to go to learn more. So we are certainly hoping that that is playing a role, that they know where to find it, and they're getting the right amount so that they can make well-informed decisions for their child's educational experience. And so as far as where they get their communication, we did have to ask this question, and it's not the first time. So this is a question we like to throw into just about any survey that we can. So we're always encouraging families to give us feedback so that we can determine where's the best venue for us to focus our efforts and how to kind of customize our communication. So did want to show this to you. You'll see that the majority of families are really relying on their school for that communication, and so we are continuing to provide tools and communication pieces for them to share in a variety of different ways, not only through email and phone, but also snippets that they can include into newsletters that they're sharing, graphics, infographics, and all of those things. So I did want to highlight that for you. This one is relative to, is the district prepared for the return to school? And so here we're asking if they feel that we're prepared to welcome really our students, teachers, and staff. We had 52% either agree or strongly agree with this statement. And again, we'll just continue to increase that communication around this so that they can have the most confidence possible in that return. Shifting gears just a little bit, we did want to make sure that, all this communication, all this focus on the return to school that happened this week and next week, it's really equally important to us that our families that are still choosing to remain virtual, that we keep connecting with them and that they understand that they are still just as much a part of the school community as those that are choosing to return in person. So checking in with our families was important as far as their confidence with using our online tools. And so 77% indicated that they had a level of confidence in using those online tools. I think the lesson learned here when we're seeing that number is continuing to work with our site leaders, and I know we do this all the time, and giving them tools that they can use to communicate with those families, checking in with them, all those same strategies that we have been using throughout this pandemic. And last pieces of data that I'll bring here for you as a result of this survey was asking our families, does your child have access to all of the needed technology? And so you can see their responses there, 6% sharing that they do not, 50% saying yes, and then we did have some that indicated not applicable because they are returning to the classroom. And then also wanting to check in advance of welcoming them back. Does your child have access to a clean mask to bring to school every day? And so you can see the responses up there as well, 78% saying yes, 20% not applicable, and 2% saying no. So I did want to make sure to point all of that out for you. A lot of information. We'll provide you with all that raw data in the upcoming report, but did want to just try to highlight it for you this evening. I can take any questions that you may have before I pass it over to Mr. Ernster, who's been so patiently waiting to speak about athletics.
Ms. Ari, thank you. Ms. Underhill, good. Ms. Aya?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Airy, for this information. We've been asking to pulse our community's been asking, and what I hear, we're making great progress in getting a wide representation of our district, and I appreciate you and your team for making those efforts. I'll make the same ask as I did for Dr. Davidson, as if send that Excel sheet over, for review. Only a couple points. When I hear trends, we heard it last night, and then we see it on social media, is communication is, we're making strides, and in what we've recognized as some things we've done well, but the way we've done things in the past may not be so relevant in this current environment. And some feedback I wanted to echo from last night specifically is the ability to provide succinct responses through clear and compelling reasoning. They also want to know the why in some of these situations. And when I post some of the school sites at the front office, everybody has the same response in this, so that's succinct, which is when they call the front office, go to the district website, and then they're overwhelmed with 14 pages of how to work through this communication effort. I don't know the answer, I don't know, and it's gonna look different for every school site or even what the reason is, but maybe thinking through how can we provide an easier way to get what they need in regards to communication. And this is a great baseline, and right around the corner is parent-teacher conference. I would like to see, at least from my perspective, we will be in school for our K-2 students for a few weeks, and for a high school student, or third through high school, for a couple weeks as well. At least take some of these survey questions and have our teachers follow up with our parents. Now, part of getting representation is an additional ask for our teachers to ask our parents or guardians, but it's a great way to, one, get connected, and really not missing those in the crack that didn't have access to it for what other reason. If it was a second language, which I know we had that ability, I saw it when I filled mine out. And I would like to, when I was at Country Meadows, we had to fill out a form when we did our parent-teacher conference. This is what percentage of your students from your class did you meet? And you had to put the number of students you had versus the number of students you met, and then show the variation. I would like that same approach, and reaching our parents, especially, we already have it in the platform and calendared. Why not take some of these questions, one or two, most important, to help drive decision-making as we move forward to gather that information. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Ms. Stone?
I don't really have anything.
Okay. Ms. Sari, thank you. Couple thoughts. The question around, do you mind going back to the question slide, please? I'm trying to remember which. I guess it was a question around the confidence question. So, and that's okay, you don't have to go to the slide. Here's my thought, and similar to the recommendation that I had for Dr. Davidson is, if they respond with no, or some form of no, right, or some form of uncertainty, I'm wondering if it makes sense to have, I don't want to call it a drop down, but maybe a window that asks if uncertain or no, or if your response was in that area or that realm, asking them to explain why, right? I think that'll allow us to understand where the opportunity exists, right? So if they're somewhat uncomfortable understanding why that is, then at least we know where to start to overcome some of that uncertainty. Does that make sense? Just as a thought. But other than that, it's what, a third of our families, 37,000 students, almost 13,000 respondents, is that right?
26,000 households in our district, so it's actually about half.
About half, yeah. So great job there. But yeah, that'd be my only recommendation. It's really, when we send out these surveys, to try to get as much information as we possibly can, so we can make informed decisions on behalf of our community. Thank you. All right, so very good. Ms. Ari, thank you very much. Mr. Ernster, welcome, sir.
Good evening, President Savinol, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds. I just want to say thank you for the time tonight for me to share an update on our athletics programs. I'm going to be sharing and speaking to 3 different areas from a bird's eye view. The area of elementary athletics, high school athletics, and then our response to COVID-19 and our return to play protocol. The first one I'll speak to is elementary athletics. I'm going to rewind back to the summer. Traditionally, our elementary programs do not participate in summer activity. I'm going to call that off-season activity. So as we approached the beginning of the school year, we started looking at dates that we could potentially be returning. We formed a task force that included elementary administrators that have a heavy impact on the athletic programs on their campuses. We convened and discussed all the different topics and aspects of an athletic program, and if we had the ability to offer that, our 8 sports, to our elementary kids. It was unanimous by all of them that we were going to postpone that at that moment of time. We will be reconvening here in the near future to look at potentially providing some sort of a simulated season, maybe a shortened season, so we could offer those opportunities to all of our kids here in the near future. So that's going to be happening here soon. Moving on to high school athletics. As you know, we've had a 4-phase plan that went on all summer long where we slowly introduced our kids back into activity. There was times that we shut down. There was times that we got going again. We changed phases. At this point in time, we are currently in our fall sports season. Prior to getting to that point, we formed a task force with all of our athletic directors. We met together as a shared stakeholder group and talked about every aspect imaginable with our high school athletic programs when we returned to what we call the AI athletic season of sport. So in the summertime, we're governed by whatever the district provides. When we hit the season, which was slated to start on August 17th, we had to have a plan in place and what that looked like for our safety protocol and our kids. There was 3 main areas that we wanted to talk about. 1, game management, 2, player, parent and student safety, and 3, operations of our programs and what that's going to look like. Currently, 7 of our programs have begun the fall season. It's been a staggered approach where the AI started on August 17th with golf and cross country, and then slowly every week has added more and more sports to where on September 7th we finally started football. Every one of those teams have been playing games. This week we started volleyball games. Next week will be our first football games on a Friday night. Winter and spring sports have been suspended and still to this day are suspended. They will begin when we return to in-person schooling on September 28th. They will be following all of our return to play protocol, our safety protocol, and everything that we've implemented over the last few months. Currently, we abide by all of the recommendations and game management plans that have been provided by the AIA and the National Federation of High School Sports. So everything that we do is governed by them, and we follow their protocol, their procedures. What we created with Peoria is what does our plan look like with our athletic trainers, and I'll speak to that in our next slide as far as our safety protocol. The last thing I'll say is that our spectators, this is something that we've had a lot of discussion on. We felt it was very important for our parents to see our kids play. And the recommendation was that we operate at 25% capacity in all of our facilities. So with that said, we sat down, we talked about what does that look like, what do those numbers look like, and we determined that 2 spectators per participant. That would, for example, for a football game, that would include band, cheer, and football players on the field. They would all receive 2 tickets to come into the game, and that would put us right at the 25% mark. Visiting teams would also be provided tickets to a certain allotment that the athletic director at the visiting team would be given, and he would then disseminate those to his program. So we're operating exactly as far as the recommendations were given to us. As we move forward into the season, we will reevaluate that to see if the data keeps dropping, are we able to open up to a greater capacity and allow more people into our stadiums. We have also staggered our management structure, reduced our staffing to accommodate the 500 or so fans that will be in the stadium, to reduce our costs to help offset the losses that we will incur there. Moving on to our COVID-19 response, with that we also formed a task force that included our athletic directors, our athletic trainers, with guidance from our team doctors. So we met as a group over the course of 3 weeks to talk about when we return. With our phase-in gone from the summertime, we're now a full operational in all of our sporting events. So we talked about what does this look like in every aspect, from transportation down to practices, down to what does it look like in our locker room. The protocol that we came up with is a 3-stage process every day of screening our athletes. So stage 1 is every kid will come, be checked by a coach with a symptom log that we've created through our athletic trainers and our team doctors. It's a series of about 7 questions. If any of those questions are answered yes, for example, if I said, hey, I've been coughing today, yes, they will immediately go to stage 2, which would go to our athletic trainers, would do a further evaluation in more detail to determine what is really going on here. If in their interest, their belief, they think that student can return, they will send them back to practice. If not, they can send them to the doctor, which would be stage 3 to go get checked out by a doctor. And we would need the doctor to clear them to come back. With that 3-stage process, all of the visiting teams that will be coming to our campuses to play games also have to fill out that symptom check form before they arrive on our campus. So our athletic directors will send that over to the visiting team. He has to fill it out and sign the bottom as an attestation that I have checked every one of our athletes prior to coming on that campus, and they cannot get off the bus until they hand that to our athletic director when they arrive. As far as spectators are concerned, with COVID-19, we are operating at 25%, but we have provided every campus with signs and literature to remind everybody that we're social distancing, that we should have masks on at all times, and those will be all over our campuses when they arrive. Regarding a response to COVID-19 positive tests, so in the event that we have a student that is test positive, we have a return to play protocol that they are immediately sent to. It's a 14-day quarantine. The form that we use was given to us by the AIA, but I'm proud to say that prior to that form being released by the AIA, our team came up with a form that we were employing the first 3 weeks of the season because it hadn't come out yet. And I'm proud to say that the AIA actually took our form and put it up pretty much on their document. It looks almost identical to that, so I'm very proud of our team for the work that we did with our team doctors. But that form, immediately the kid goes into return to play protocol for 14 days. He has to be cleared by a doctor. That includes a heart screening before they can come back. When we have that They come back, they go through a 5-day acclimation process so that we can get them back into activity in a healthy way so that they're not throwing them right back into a game. So over the course of 5 days, our trainers will put them through a series of testing to get them back ready. So realistically, it's 14 days in quarantine plus 5 days of acclimation, so 19 days before they ever step foot on the field again. With regard to those that could potentially have been in close contact with that individual, immediately upon hearing of a positive test, we will contact our task force here within the district, and we will go through our close contact protocol to determine, are we going to quarantine anybody else that was in that team in close contact with that individual. Lastly, after that, we would disinfect every piece of equipment that's been in contact anywhere that that student has been to make sure that we're mitigating any of the virus that's still out there. So with that said, I'm very proud of our team. I'm not going to state how many cases we've had. I want to knock on wood or anything and jinx anybody, but I'm very proud of our team. It's because of our athletic directors, our coaches, and our players understanding the seriousness of this nature and the importance of wanting to get back, that we had to follow the rules, the protocol, and all the safety procedures we have. I'm extremely proud of what they've done and where we are at today. Because of their hard work, we have a season, and I'm proud of that. So with that said, that's an update of athletics.
Good, thank you, sir. Questions, comments, Ms. Stone?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Ms. Underhill?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for that report. It was good to hear an update on sports. I also want to say thank you to you and your team, for all of our coaches, all of our trainers. You've had a plan, and I've seen it because my own son is on the football team. And you worked the plan, and it's worked well. And it was exciting to see the staff be so serious about everything, and also to utilize technology that you have implemented. So that's been fantastic. And I just really want to thank the whole team, all of the teams and the coaches, because it's been so important for our kids to really have that connection to other kids and to their coaches, and also to get that physical activity during this challenging time. All that starts at the top. So good job, because that's a big job to get done. But just really, really appreciate you, taking that leadership and getting our kids to be able to have those opportunities. That's huge. I do have one question. So when we go to away games, what is the guest protocol for that? Do you follow that district's guest protocol, or how does that work?
Yeah, President Sandoval, Ms. Underhill, we are at the mercy of the opposing school.
Okay.
So whatever their protocol is, whatever they're allowing for visiting fans, I can say that I'm in contact with every district AD in the Valley, and for the most part, everybody's consistent with 2 tickets per player.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Ms. Sarah Martinez?
Welcome to your first official big presentation in a global pandemic. Kudos, as Ms. Underhill stated, you put a plan together, you put a task together, and you stuck to it consistently. During the very beginning of the process, the board received photos and emails about how do we enforce and work through that, and you handle that swiftly and communicated. So I do acknowledge and appreciate those efforts, so thank you. I'm going to start off with the elementary athletics. Just one quick observation. And again, I heard this, our students at the elementary level are yearning for that interaction, and you've created a task force. I would love to see one of 2 things happen, is present to a group of parents and solicit their feedback. And the reason is that it's a little different at the high school level. The high school level, they may have each other to depend on rides as they are drivers, but at the elementary level, they're really depending on commutes and parent work schedules. This environment is also impacting our working families, and I would like to see their feedback or implementation strategies as it relates to re-engaging in elementary athletics. And moving on to the high school, same thing, revisiting the plan as you evolve through this year, taking it back to parent groups. I know Ms. Airy has already quarterly groups. Maybe that may be an opportunity to get in front of them and get their insights. I have one question in regards to the 25%. How was that determined? What protocols, what was the influencing factor to get you at the 25%?
President Sandoval, Ms. Ceja Martinez. So when this whole thing started, the AI recommended 25% capacity. So we sat down, we talked about, okay, every one of our stadiums is a different size. We were able to get 2 of our 7, I'm going to take football. 2 of our 7 football stadiums, we were able to know exactly what it seats. The other 5 we did not know. We wanted to be consistent across the board to eliminate the issue of why can they have more than we can have, and we wanted to be fair with everybody. So we felt it very important for our parents to be there. When we started adding up the numbers, when you take the number of band athletes, the number of Spirit Lion, the number of football players on the field, and you multiplied that by 2, it put us right about the number, about 23%. So it just made sense to do and stick with it like that instead of trying to be a mathematician and counting how many seats there are in the stadium and asking my athletic director to be out there with a measuring tape. I thought it was just it was the right thing to do to be fair with everybody when the numbers came out so close to 25%.
Thank you for that rationale. When we look at our school programs, they're all different sizes. I would like to see a communication strategy or survey, just like we've looked at tonight, to include some of these questions. How is it working? How is it not? And we can have start to gather some baseline data. I really appreciate the walkthrough on what happens if a student is identified as COVID. And you mentioned football, so I'm just going to revisit that example. And knowing that these teams are so large, and then Dr. Reynolds, you mentioned that you do contact tracing at the last board meeting. What does that look like when 1 out of 100 football players gets COVID? And how does that play out? Communication, do we stop? Do we freeze everybody for 10 days?
President Sandoval, Ms. Ceja Martinez, so every situation is unique, as you know. If it happens on a Monday when they're doing a walkthrough practice, there's a lot less contact versus a Friday night football game, so we take every situation. When it does occur, we have a close contact form that they'll fill out, like who have I been in close contact. So for example, if I'm a defensive back and I have my 7 or 8 guys that I'm with every day, those are probably the guys that are gonna be on the list that we're gonna have to evaluate if we're gonna need to quarantine them as well. If there's a game, obviously that's a bigger scenario, and we're in a situation where our task force and the AI will receive guidance from the county, everybody, to see what is the best scenario for our kids to keep them safe.
Perfect, that makes sense because we're about to have games, right? I think I saw the schedules. Awesome. And as far as concerns, just continue to address them, and thank you so much for all you do and your leadership and reaching all the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ceja Martinez. Mr. Ernster, thank you very much, again, just for being mindful and intentional about bringing our kids back into the, I guess, really the athletic and sporting environment, if you will. So I agree with Ms. Underhill. I mean, we have many programs, and athletics being one of them, that do enhance the student experience and certainly influence many of the soft skills, if you will, that are needed to grow and be successful in their future. I do agree with Ms. Ceja Martinez, as we take a look at our elementary athletics and having the same level of diligence and ensuring that when we bring them back, it's a safe environment and supportive as well. Now, question around the band. So, I know typically at a football game or even a basketball game, they're in this very small section, right, and very close together. So with the 25%, will they have 2 sections so they can sit a little further apart, or just curious on what that'll look like?
President Sandoval, so I work closely with our Director of Arts, Rob Panzer, and so we've talked extensively about what this is going to look like. I asked him to speak to all of his directors on what is that going to look like at a game, because we realized that we have to operate under a certain capacity. So it was unanimous by all the directors that they would be seated in the end zone. They would carry their chairs out. They would spread their chairs out across one of the end zones. They would play from there, so the only people that would be in the stands would be parents.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. What about buses traveling to away games? Every other seat?
So currently, I've talked to Phil Camacho, Director of Transportation, and we're operating. He's bringing kids on the bus in one location. They're exiting in a different location, so there's one fluid movement through there. They are filling the buses up at 2 per seat. When possible, we're going to encourage social distancing and spreading out 1 to a seat. So if we take our white fleet, like for example, if a golf coach takes one of our AV vans that carries 14 kids, he would take 5 to a golf match. They would each be 1 seat apart, and we would not share a seat in that situation.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. No, very good. It's I'm just excited, one, that all of our students are being welcomed back we'll have 100% of our kids back, as of Monday, and excited that we are beginning to open up all of these great opportunities for them to thrive in and what we're known for. So thank you again for your leadership, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
President Sandoval, if I may, I just want to extend my thanks to Mr. Ernster, all the athletic directors, the principals, the coaches, and with all the work that they've done. They have taken it incredibly seriously. They know how important this is that we do this well. But I also want to thank our athletes, our student athletes, for the work that they have done and the diligence that they have shown, our band members, our cheerleaders, Spirit Line, for all the work that they're doing, and also want to extend an appreciation for the patience that our parents are showing. This is difficult for everyone, and I hope that they understand how much we understand that and are working, as Mr. Ernster said, to reevaluate as we move forward. We know that there are more than 2 tickets per athlete or per band member that they're going to want, but we appreciate their patience. And lastly, this is about athletics, this is about band, but we have many, many activities on a high school campus, on an elementary campus, and we are working each day to figure out how we are going to continue to bring students back and involve them in the thing that interests them, and how are we going to provide that opportunity.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you for that. Any further questions, comments? Go ahead.
I do.
Sure.
Just a couple. I know we've heard some feedback from our community. I watched the candidate forum, and that's who I forgot to say thank you, is the candidates. But there's a common statement that I keep hearing about finances, and I'm hopeful that in the future we can look at the impact of COVID-19 and any financial data that shed some light on cost savings in this environment, whether it be because we're not using our buildings, because we're virtual. What does that look like? Where did we save, but where did we increase costs? What is the cost analysis in the future? It doesn't have to be now, but when we continue to look at this environment, what's the financial impact? And I know we had a big presentation last time, so as we look forward, that was it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I know we're still on COVID, and I know the discussion was around athletics, the surveys, et cetera. But, a couple things, if I may. I mean, and I know you have probably received it as well. I think we all have, just in and around the cleaning solution that's being used, in the classrooms. Terminator, there are some concerns by individuals just around that solution being safe, for our students and teachers. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, that is not on the agenda this evening, but what we can do is specifically work to put that into our communication plan and make sure that we address that, and we can bring that back at another agenda. But we can absolutely address that and make sure that our employees, because we did hear that with the PPE, but as we talk about how we communicate that, we are committed to making sure that as we communicate the plans for PPE in the surveys, that will be part of that, as we talked about earlier, making sure that our employees know how to use it, whether it's safe to use, or how to safely use it, rather. And then not just with the cleaning solutions, but with all the other mitigation strategies that they have. We heard that loud and clear.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. All right, moving right along to informational reports. 12.1, budget, facilities, planning, and construction report. These items that we are going through now will be on our website, accessible to the public. 12.2 district enrollment reports for the month of August 2020. Also accessible on our website. 12.3 report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Ari, anything to call out?
President Sandoval, members of the board, just one event that I did want to note for you that is coming up. It is an elections live event, and my eyes at this hour are straining to see, but I believe that says October the 7th that we are holding that. Thank you. We have it as the elections live event. It will more affectionately to me be called the Michelle Myers event because we will look forward to having her explain in great detail for our community and anyone who would like to join us the ins and outs of school finance, but most importantly, the facts related to the maintenance and operations override as well as the critical needs bond. And so she has been giving this presentation to many over the last few weeks, but we will be having that as an opportunity for our community. We will also have an opportunity for them to ask questions related to anything for school finance. So we appreciate Ms. Myers sharing her expertise with our community, and we invite you all to join us.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Moving on to 12.4, legislative state and local updates. Ms. Myers.
Yes, well, good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, and Dr. Reynolds. Tuesday, September 22nd of this week was National Voter Registration Day, and the clock is ticking for people to register to vote. Maricopa County Elections has previously shared that Peoria Unified has approximately 146,712 registered voters within the district, and the deadline is less than 2 weeks away for additional people to register. The deadline for Arizona is Monday, October 5th, which is 29 days from Election Day on November 3rd. People can visit the Arizona Secretary of State's website at www.azsos.gov for more information and to register to vote. The community can also visit the district's website at www.peoriaunified.org, and they can navigate to the bonds and override page to learn more about our 13% M&O override continuation and critical needs bond questions that the district has on the November 3rd ballot. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Moving on to other business, 13.1, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Ms. Stone? Okay. Ms. Underhill? Ms. Sarah Martinez?
Just real quick,
Sure.
Our candidate forum, all the candidates who are interested in serving in our district and learning about them, it is online with PUPC. They hosted it. It's on our PUSD website. I know it's nerve-wracking and those feelings, but just for them to put themselves out there, President Sandoval, thank you. Thank you for wanting to serve your community. So,
Thank you for that. 13.2, draft agenda for the October 8th, 2020 regular board meeting. And that is still being worked, and we'll add more meat to that as we have our agenda planning meeting. 13.3, requests for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Ms. Stone? Okay. Ms. Underhill? Ms. Sarah Martinez?
for sure, one, to come up with and execute an strategic and intentional plan for the board to engage with the community.
I'll second that. I have a couple. Anything else, Ms. Sarah?
Nope.
Okay. I have a couple, and Dr. Reynolds and Kim and really team, I would love for you to be a thought partner with me on this to make sure I frame it correctly. So it's a very specific, succinct ask. But one of the things as we go through a crisis, I mean, it exposes many things. It exposes our best practices and opportunities, right? I think not only as an organization or as a district, but even as a family. And I think there are times, really, I'll just say this. I mean, there's no doubt that, what we know may be coming around the corner from a social and emotional perspective as we bring back our students is something that, we are planning for, right? We have our additional social workers, through the grant that we have out there. But we also have families, that are being challenged as well. So my ask is this, whether it be in the COVID-19 update in the next board meeting or a separate line item, but what I'd like to see is what our social and emotional, really our mental wellness plan framework looks like, right? And even if it was pre-COVID, but how that plan is adapting to our current environment to ensure that, our families are being supported, through these times. Not just from our own internal framework, but how we communicate, resources that are out there for our families. I know there's a community bridges that's out there, et cetera. How we best put our families in a position to be successful and certainly healthy, from a social and emotional capacity perspective. So again, if COVID-19 updates, or I'm thinking, maybe that's something that we need to have as its own line item. Thoughts?
I will second that, but add to include virtual versus in person, to include a social and emotional.
Yeah, without question. Agreed. So there's that. And then the other ask is around our communications. I know we have a communications framework, and what that looks like in our current environment. And I know communications doesn't always come through, let me just say this. Communications comes through many verticals throughout the district, right? I think what would be helpful is if we can define what the standard is, right, from a communications perspective, not only the, tonality, and tonality is not the right word, but just, word choice and even turnaround time for, responses to our community, our teachers, our staff, et cetera. Is it 24 hours, is it 48 hours? I think we have a standard that we have and that we hope to always follow, and I think depending on the question, it may take a little more time to get back, right? Just to do a little more research. So I think there again, just understanding what that looks like, and also within communications, what that toolbox looks like at each site. Because right now our sites are put in a position to have courageous conversations with their parents, with the community, right? If there are questions around our protocols or, just what we're doing as a district to make sure that, we are not compromising the health and wellness of any of the families, any of the individuals that we're responsible for. Is there anything that we add to the toolbox? Maybe it's a one-sheeter that kind of bullets how to respond to these certain questions. Maybe these frequently asked questions, right, that we can give them at each site, from the site leadership level to teachers and staff. I just think, giving them that information, I think they'll be successful and certainly confident in the dialogue that they have with parents on site. So that's my other ask. So mental wellness and communication are the two agenda items that I'd like to add to a future
add to his communication.
Future board meeting. What's that?
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. So I was going to add to that, the communication.
Sure, go ahead. So
I'll second the communication, but I would like to see a workflow versus department, if it's any different. The resources and platforms that we're using, and any financial investment that we are strategically working with. So, and I second.
And that is it? Okay. All right. I need a motion to adjourn this meeting,
I
please.
move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Dr. Reynolds, this is short for your birthday.
Yes.
That is not an agenda item, so I cannot comment.
Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 4 and 1 absent. Thank you, everybody, for your time in the conversation. Thank you, board members.